Bart just about passed out when Michael introduced him to the mansion clock. Just the complexity of the gear and pendulum system inside almost made his head spin. It was even more complicated than some magic theories. At first, Bart didn't understand what was so special about the machine. After all, it wasn't as obviously useful as the faucet or the toilet. But when Michael explained to him how the entire day was split into 24 hours and how the clock ticked for a constant amount of time, the realization finally hit him in the face. This is magnificent, Bart praised. As a businessman, he knew how important timekeeping was in the industry. For example, everyone in the business industry always had a problem with the shipment of goods between two different places. A shipment was sent early during the day and would reach its destination before sundown. However, both parties don't have a precise way to estimate when that shipment would return. After all, they had no frame of reference to how much time would pass before the carriage reached its destination. Sure, there were sundials and hourglasses, but they were too inconsistent. But with this clock, everyone could agree on when the shipment would arrive. They would know that the shipment from Kingsbridge to the next town over would need 4 ticks in the clock or 4 hours. This would revolutionize commerce. And that was just the application he could think of as a businessman. There were plenty more general uses for the public. Ahem, another great work, son. Your work is truly one of a kind, Bart said calmly, trying not to sound too excited. Bart had to rein in his enthusiasm for the clock. After all, it wasn't his. No matter how much he wanted his own clock for his business, it wouldn't be right to ask a favor from his 5-year-old son. Michael smiled. Dad, do you want to have a clock? Bart's body jumped up, his body shaking in excitement. But still, he didn't let his emotions get the best of him. You created this, so it is rightfully yours. It wouldn't be appropriate of me to take it for myself. The shining light in his eyes betrayed his words. He was practically salivating at the thought of having his own clock. It's fine, Dad. Michael waved off his father's concern. I can make one for you. The only problem is that I don't have enough raw materials for now. Bart looked at Michael. Are you sure? He said, with anticipation leaking out in his tone. Lilia snuggled up to her husband's arms and teased him. Foo, stop pretending, dear. I know you want one for yourself. Then, she turned to Michael. Don't worry about the materials, honey. I want you to create that clock and show us how you constructed this magnificent work of art. Lilia's motivations for this were completely different from Bart's. She wanted to see her son perform earth magic to satisfy her desire of seeing firsthand how much of a genius her 5-year-old son was at earth magic. Since it would take a couple of days to create the clock, Michael continued the tour and showed off his latest creation to his parents, the hot springs. They walked out of the mansion and went over to the steaming stone building next to it. The maids and butlers immediately assisted them in entering the hot springs by fanning the flames to keep the temperature hot and showing them the proper attire inside. The maids helped Lydia while the butlers assisted Bart. This is reminiscent of the hot baths overseas, Bart said, letting the steam of the hot springs hit his face. He had visited another country once, and their hot springs were one of the reasons why millions upon millions of foreigners visited their country every single year. He would have never thought that Michael could create something similar to their hot springs when there wasn't a volcano anywhere near this place. This is relaxing, Bart said as he immersed himself in the bath. It wasn't just the hot springs that relieved him of the stress and fatigue on his body. It was also the fact that his son was a transcendent genius who would have no trouble flourishing in the world. He no longer had any doubt whether Michael's grandfather would leave him any inheritance. The old man would recognize the ingenuity in Michael's inventions and immediately fund him to create more stuff in the future. Bart relaxed, knowing that his son was a genius. Michael was able to create innovative solutions to problems that intellectuals couldn't figure out for thousands of years. If there was a solution, then it would largely involve magic and spells. But Michael was able to create running water with simple physics. This meant that everyone could use this invention, whether they were poor or rich. You'll do well in the future, son. Michael relaxed next to his father in the hot springs. For some reason, Michael felt as if Bart was trying to tell him something, but decided that he was far too young to know about it. Michael! Just then, Lilia's voice boomed through the thick stone walls of the divider between the two hot springs. Both father and son flinched, knowing what would come next. Lilia came running to the men's section of the hot springs with a towel draped over her body. "What's wrong, Mom?" Michael asked, trying to look as innocent as possible. "What's this I hear about you bathing with the maids?" she asked with a smile, yet her eyes were painted with bloodshed. "Ugh, this is unacceptable. How come you bathe with them and not with me? You come over to our side of the hot springs this instant." Just when he thought he was able to excuse himself from bathing in the women's section, he told the maids to not tell his mother about that. But it seemed that his mother was a better interrogator than she was a mage. "And don't think you can get away with letting me pinch your cheeks," Lilia said, with her hands on her waist. She was serious. To get out of this situation, he knew that there was only one thing he could do. He raised his hand and conjured a ball of water, a small rock, and a flickering flame, and rotated them around his hands using wind. "Look, Mom, I can cast all 4 elements." Michael seemed to have underestimated how much fanfare he would get after announcing his world-breaking talent of a quadruple element mastery. His mom and dad immediately got out of the hot springs and questioned him intensely about his magic talents. Even though the manifestations of the 4 basic element spells were as clear as day, Lilia and Bart simply couldn't believe their eyes. After all, not even the current 9-star Grand Wizard of the world had this kind of talent when he was a 5-year-old child. It was unthinkable to dream up the fact that a child, who wasn't taught anything about magic during his childhood, actually had the talent to command all the main elements of the universe. They had him cast simple spells such as the water ball, ember, rock throw, and wind blow a couple of times in front of their eyes to get them fully convinced. Even then, they still felt like they were dreaming. To confirm this, they invited a 5-star wizard from the Magic Tower in Kingsbridge to come and assess Michael's talents in the 4 elements. 4 hours later, the wizard came into the mansion and started the assessment. Bart paced back and forth while Lilia bit her nails as they watched the wizard raise his wand and cast an inspection spell toward Michael. "I'm here to assess your mana core," the wizard said to Michael like he was a child who needed pampering. Unlike the Vanderbilts who wanted immediate confirmation, the wizard wasn't in a rush. This wasn't the first time a hopeful parent hired him to see if their child was a transcendent talent in the mystic arts. Most, if not all the time, the child only ended up having a mediocre talent destined to be stuck below the 5th-star realm. The wizard thought Michael would be the same, as light mana left his core and gathered at the tip of his wand like a lightning rod. A mystical screen made out of a milky white liquid substance appeared between him and Michael. Whatever semblance of mana core Michael had in his body would show up as a bright light on the white screen, confirming what talent he had in the mystic arts, if any. The wizard gasped, taking a step back to keep himself upright. "Invasive magic spell detected. Since you are voluntarily agreeing to the inspection, the magic spell is allowed to pass through your body. Analyzing magic. Magic theory acquired. Mana core inspection. Light and dark element. This magic creates a screen for the user to peer through a target's body and observe the mana core forming inside. The mana cores will show up as different lights corresponding to the elements." Michael was glad to find out that the stones in his body had an actual name. Mana core. So that's what it's called. More importantly, the best thing he discovered through all of this was that there were other elements besides the 4 basic ones. Case in point, the new 4-star spell he learned needed light and dark mana, which he currently didn't have any stored in his body. It seemed that gathering those special mana necessitated some kind of special event, or else Michael would have chanced upon them naturally in the world around him. He wanted to ask the wizard how he could gather light mana, but the man was too stunned to even speak. "Wizard, what did you see?" Bart said, his voice nervous. The wizard took a big gulp of air, trying to clear the surprise out of his body. But every time he looked at the 4 bright, shining lights in the white screen overlaid on Michael's body, he felt like he was going to faint. A vibrant green light, a fiery red light, a warm brown light, and a cool silvery light shone brightly on Michael's lower abdomen. The presence of these 4 lights coexisting under a 5-year-old's body wasn't as problematic as the brightness they emitted. The 4-mana cores were as big as an orange. One would only see this large size and concentration of mana with the cores of adolescent to adult mages, who had years upon years of formal training and cultivation. No one would expect, or even believe, that the wizard saw it on a 5-year-old boy with no training whatsoever. He would have already been considered a 1-in-1,000-year genius just with this mana pool alone. But to have this much mana on all 4 elements, that was, suffice it to say, otherworldly. He is adept in the 4 elements, the wizard said, fixing his tall, pointed hat and wiping the sweat off his forehead. I have never seen this kind of talent in the mystic arts before. I'm afraid I am not sufficient in properly assessing his talent in magic. I deeply urge you to take him to the magic tower at your earliest convenience. He must not waste his youth and start training this instant. We are willing to take him under our wings. Formally, Bart was happy to hear that Michael was indeed a genius in the mystic arts. This could pave the way for Michael to become one of the most esteemed wizards in the world that even royals and kings would have to pay respects to. But after hearing their offer of taking him informally, Bart was a little bit worried. After all, by joining the Guild of Arcana, Michael would have to spend his whole life studying in the magic tower, foregoing all earthly desires to pursue the pinnacle of mystery. Not only that, if Michael got too involved with the mages, his loyalty could shift over from the Vanderbilt family to the Guild of Arcana. While Bart was worrying about the consequences of Michael being too much of a genius, his wife, on the other hand, was worrying about more important things. So, Lilia asked the wizard, "What is it, madam?" The helpless wizard asked. "Is his earth element core bigger than the other cores? Tell me he's more talented in earth magic." The wizard didn't know what to say. Things have changed a lot in the Vanderbilt estate ever since Michael revealed his true magical aptitude to his parents. His daily life consisted of an early morning tutoring session with his mother in earth magic, cramming all kinds of information into him in an effort to make his earth mana the best out of the 4 elements. She treated it as if it was a competition. Fufufu, you're soaking up all the information, as expected of my little genius. Despite being forced to wake up early in the morning, Michael didn't mind the tutoring sessions. He learned a lot of new information about earth magic and spells that he wouldn't have known otherwise. Earth mana is strongest early in the day, since that is when the flowers, plants, stones, and animals wake up to soak all the energy in their surroundings and convert it into earth mana. Lilia continued to explain. It was interesting to learn that earth mana came from the beings living in the world. The best way to explain it would be to compare it to the natural cycle of life. Plants soak up light from the sun and convert it into energy. Then, animals eat those plants and use them as their source of energy. Some of that energy gets used up while some of it gets thrown away into waste, and also earth mana. She also taught him how to properly meditate. The purer mana one could gather to fill their core, the higher magic output they could achieve. Mana gathering or meditating was a practice that all mages needed to master first and foremost. And since Lilia was a genius at earth magic, she was excellent at meditating earth mana. The best way to teach a kid the proper technique was to embrace them and gather mana for them, sort of like a proxy. She was so excited to teach him about mana gathering, but was quickly saddened once she realized that he was already quite adept at meditating. Earth mana, as well as the other 3 elemental mana, revolved around Michael's tiny body like a tornado. It didn't take long before everything got sucked up into his cores, increasing its size by a tiny bit. It was all thanks to ChatJK1, of course. His personal AI assistant was in charge of gathering mana for him, even while he was asleep. With nothing left to teach him, his mother then demonstrated a few spells for him. This is a 2-star spell called Stone Armor, Lilia said as she spread her hands, with a brownish aura glowing around her body. Michael watched as pieces of granite stones manifested in the air above his mother's skin and stuck to her like a magnet. It formed a skin-tight armor on her body, protecting the torso, head, arms, and legs. The granite armor made her seem like a Norse goddess ready for battle. Analyzing magic theory acquired. Stone armor. Earth element. This magic allows the user to create a protective armor made out of stone. This armor coats the whole body in an invisible protective layer. The armor's aesthetic quality depends on the user's imagination. The armor's defensive quality depends on the user's mana quality and quantity. Each hit will decrease the user's mana depending on the strength of the attack. Before Lilia could even show off her armor to Michael, she saw his body emanate earth mana the same way hers did when she cast stone armor. Chunks of granite stone floated a few inches above his body before sinking to his skin, forming a full-body armor reminiscent of the fantasy heroes he saw in anime. Cool. Thanks, Mom, Michael said casually, feeling grateful to learn a useful spell. Although she was proud of her son, she couldn't help but feel as if everything about Michael was absurd. It didn't even take him a few seconds before he was able to replicate her mastery of the spell she spent years practicing. It was a good thing he was her son, or else she would have considered his talent too unfair. Because this spell is made out of earth mana, it is a good defense against wind attacks. However, it is weak against fire attacks, Lilia explained. It turned out that just like in a certain game back in his previous life, all elements had strengths and weaknesses against other elements. For earth, it was good against air, but bad against fire. I understand stone armor, Mom, but I want something that will protect me against all attacks. I don't want any weaknesses in my defense. Lilia shook her head. All spells have their weaknesses and strengths. That was not ideal for Michael. For his life to be comfortable, he wanted to be overly powerful in defense. So much so that no enemy could kill him even if he let them attack him without trying to evade their moves. If there's stone armor, then is there also a water armor? That would surely protect me from fire unlike stone armor. He asked his mother this question, and the answer was yes. It has a different name, but the concept is the same. It just has different elements, she said, reminiscing about her adventurous life before she settled down. If that's true, then maybe I can stack all kinds of elemental armor all over my body and protect me from all harm. Michael thought, ChatJK1, can you create a spell that is similar to stone armor, but in different elements? Apologies. There is insufficient information for me to create spells at the moment. The solution to this problem was to simply see more spells. Thankfully, he was going to visit the Magic Tower soon. Hopefully, he could get a handful of spells from that place. Can't wait to learn water armor, Michael uttered to himself. Unfortunately, it seemed that his mother had the ears of a sensitive owl. Michael swore he saw her head turn 180 degrees while she stared daggers at him. You'll what now? I didn't hear you wanted to learn water spells while I'm here, right? Surely not. Michael awkwardly laughed and slowly backed away. He should have learned by now how possessive his mother was, even when it came to magic. He tried to excuse himself by saying he was going to do something else, but his mother quickly caught him by the cuffs. After the early morning tutor sessions with his mother, Michael spent the afternoons constructing the clock he was going to give his father. Since this wasn't his first time making the machine, he was able to build the clock a little bit smaller, making it look like the old grandfather clocks he had seen back in his previous life. It was still big, but not as large as a cabinet. His father, upon hearing the rhythmic ticking of the clock, couldn't help but scream out in excitement. "Oh, whoa, wow," the man said, letting go of all pretenses he had about being dignified. Seeing the pendulum swing back and forth seemed to have hypnotized the man. He couldn't help but swing his head back and forth as well. Michael watched his father become obsessed with the clock, to the point that he looked a little bit silly. "Do you like it that much, Dad?" Michael said, chuckling to himself. He had never seen his father act like this. He always saw his dad as a serious character, treating everything with a no-nonsense attitude. But now he was seeing him in a completely different light. "I still can't understand how it works and how you created it. But this is amazing, son. Thank you. I can't wait to install it in my office," Bart said as he ruffled Michael's hair. "Now that you have that, you have no excuse for coming home late. Right, dear?" Lilia sounded like she was joking, but both father and son knew that it was a real threat. "Oh, would you look at the time? We better get going now, so we'll arrive at Kingsbridge before lunch. Ha ha." It seemed Michael inherited his ability to fend off Lilia's scary questions from his father. Today was the day they were going to Kingsbridge to visit the Magic Tower. The only reason why it took them about a week to go to Kingsbridge was because Michael's mother wanted to improve his earth magic a little bit more before he got assessed. It didn't matter, though, because Michael finally got the chance to see mages up close and personal. Hey Chat JK1, you're ready to analyze more magic spells, right? I am fully capable of scanning magic spells that are performed in your vicinity. That was what he liked to hear. A few hours later, Sebastian stopped the horses dragging the carriage and peeked through the window. Sir, madam, young master, we have arrived at Kingsbridge. Michael had heard a lot about Kingsbridge after hearing Castell's daily report about the Reborn company. According to her, Kingsbridge was a large city whose citizens were a little bit wealthier than the average citizen. The normal inhabitants of this place consisted of rich merchants, famous swordsman families, and even royals. This was the reason why they could sell Reborn soap and shampoo at 1 gold coin a pair. Most people wouldn't be able to afford that, but the people at Kingsbridge were more than wealthy enough to splurge on keeping themselves happy. Michael looked out the window and saw the tall stone walls surrounding the city, with archers and soldiers stationed at each watchtower. The walls are made out of stone and mortar to provide strength and stability to the structure. They have an estimated height of 20 meters or equivalent to a 6-story building. Would you like to know more? No, I'm good, thanks. As expected of a wealthy city, they didn't skimp out on arming their soldiers to the teeth. The enforcers guarding the gate were clad in full steel armor, with gold plating wrapped around to emanate a royal aura to the soldiers. I pay respects to the Vanderbilts, said the soldier as he bowed to the carriage. They weren't questioned or had their carriages inspected like all the other people entering the city. They were let in purely because of the Vanderbilt emblem on their carriage. By the way, their emblem was the symbol of 2 hands cupping an overflowing collection of gold coins, with the image of the planet below it. Michael thought it was too much, considering they put real gold on their emblem just to show off their wealth. After they were let in, Sebastian continued to lead their carriage towards the large black spire in the distance. Meanwhile, Michael put his head out the window. This was the first time he would be witnessing a real medieval city with his own 2 eyes. He had an abstract idea of what they looked like since he frequently watched anime and TV shows depicting this era, but seeing it in real life felt more surreal. The men were wearing fine tunics, while the women were wearing puffy gowns as if it were normal. It looked like they were cosplaying, but they weren't. This was their true attire for the day. As the carriage continued to rock through the cobblestone roads of Kingsbridge, Michael's leisurely observation of the city was interrupted by a horrible scent that filled his senses. Ugh, he had to pinch his nose. He couldn't take it anymore. Wabid. What is that? However, his parents didn't seem to notice anything wrong. What's wrong, dear? Michael looked at them as if they were crazy. Don't you smell that? Lilia and Bart both looked at each other. They didn't know what was smelling so bad. Then, Bart finally remembered that this was the first time Michael visited Kingsbridge. Oh, you must be smelling the river dames, Bart explained. Soon enough, the carriage reached a wide bridge leading to the next part of town. Michael looked out the window and finally realized what was smelling so bad. The river dames was full of pollution. Not just any pollution, it was human pollution, meaning human waste. This world was still stuck in the medieval times when human waste was simply thrown into the river with no regard for cleanliness. Michael had been living with modern toiletry in the mansion for so long that he forgot this fact. Only now did this face hit him in his face. With such an expansive city full of wealthy citizens, Michael would have thought that they would spend a lot of money keeping their place clean. Bhy Ade Day nod cleaning. Why are they not cleaning? They do. Every week, magicians come and purify the river dames. From what I know, they just cleaned it yesterday, Bart said. Yesterday? They just cleaned the river yesterday, but it was already full of waste. Michael couldn't believe it. He couldn't spend a day living in a place that smelled like faces. But the citizens of this city didn't even look dazed as they walked along the bridge. They were too used to the horrible smell. You know what this place needs? A sewage system. Having mages purify the waste every week is ignoring the root of the problem. This is going to spread disease all over the city. Would you like me to explain how a sewage system can work using materials available in this world? ChatJK one suggestion made him think. Should he build a sewage system in Kingsbridge City? Michael set his thoughts aside, at least for now. He doubted that the big wigs in Kingsbridge would allow him to construct such a large-scale renovation in their city. Soon enough, they reached the towering spire. It was as tall as some skyscrapers back in his previous world, with the same texture and color as the obsidian he saw from a certain blocky survival game he played back in his other life. Interestingly enough, the entrance to the magic tower was a door-like portal that was made out of swirling green liquid. We have reached the magic tower. The tower master has been alerted of our arrival and will send someone to welcome the young master, Sebastian said as he opened the carriage door. Michael immediately got out and stretched his body. He couldn't wait to get more useful spells. After a few seconds, the green portal shimmered as a figure came out from the other side. It was a woman in her mid-20s wearing a green robe and a black pointed hat, which was the typical attire of mages in this world. "Welcome, esteemed guests," she said. "We're here to see the tower master." "Is he here?" Lilia asked straightforwardly. The woman didn't seem to mind her rudeness, and actually seemed as if there was a glimmer of admiration in her eyes whenever she looked at Michael's mother. "It is an honor to meet the earthen witch," she said, referring to Lilia. "Unfortunately, the tower master has tended to some other business for the moment and cannot meet you this instant. But he will be back in about an hour." "TSK, what's that old man doing?" Lilia sounded annoyed. From what Michael heard, it seemed as if his mother was acquainted with the tower master. "Mom, do you know these people?" This time, it was the woman who answered. "Of course, little one. Your mother is one of the most talented mages to come out of this magic tower. She used to be called the Earthen Witch of the West. If she hadn't given up her hat, she would have probably become the next tower master." Lilia waved off the woman's praises, treating it as nothing but a thing of the past. "I told you, honey, I was a pretty talented earth mage back in the day. You don't need to learn from the magic tower. I can teach you everything you need to know about earth spells," Lilia said. "Dear, you're being rude," Bart warned his wife. Then, he turned to the woman and asked her if they should come back at a later date. "There's no need," she answered. "The little one here can take a little tour of our magic tower to get him acquainted with our business." Michael perked up when he heard that. Would he finally be able to see mages hurling amazing spell after spell? "Can I?" he asked, showing his enthusiasm. "Well, all right. We'll leave him in your care for now," Lilia said, a bit begrudgingly. "Don't worry, Miss Lilia. We will take care of the little one," the woman said, taking Michael's hand and leading him to the entrance of the magic tower. Michael bid goodbye to his parents as if he was a kindergarten student getting left off at daycare. They were quite busy with some Vanderbilt business, so they couldn't stay with Michael for the whole day. "So, little Vanderbilt, why did you want to visit the magic tower? Have you taken an interest in learning magic? Your age is the perfect time to start gathering mana to form a core." Michael looked up at her. "They didn't tell you why I'm here?" The woman shook her head. "No, we're only told that you were to meet the tower master." Michael knew that it wasn't going to be a secret, so he blurted out the truth. "Well, I'm here to get my magic talent assessed." "Oh, that's wonderful. You must have manifested some kind of talent in earth magic, given your mother's talent in it." Michael nodded. "Yeah, I guess I'm talented in earth magic. At least, that's what they say. I haven't met anyone else to compare myself with." The woman smiled. She thought nothing of his words and thought that it was just simple ramblings of a 5-year-old child. And as they walked closer to the magic tower, Michael felt the abundance of mana in the air. It was dense. It was as if he was walking in a sea of mana particles, with lights of all colors swarming his vision. "Whoa," Michael uttered. "There's a lot of mana here. But why is it imbalanced? There's more fire element than the rest, and there's not a lot of water element." The woman nodded. "Yes, that's because... Wait, how can you sense the other mana in the air? I thought you were talented in earth magic." Michael shrugged his shoulders. "I'm talented in all of them." The woman stopped dead in her tracks and looked at Michael with wide eyes. Meanwhile, Michael went ahead and walked closer to the portal inside the magic tower. And as he did, he sensed something unfamiliar. Detecting the presence of new mana. Analyzing. Complete. You have now gained the ability to gather 4 new types of mana: light, dark, lightning, and poison, starting the formation of new cores to accommodate the new mana particles completed. Automatic mana gathering has been enabled. Michael closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The new mana particles oozing out of the magic tower were abundant, and he used this opportunity to soak up as much as he could. He felt the presence of 4 very minute crystals form surrounding his main elemental mana cores. Gathering lightning mana felt like a prickling feeling in his skin. Meanwhile, the poison mana felt like he was experiencing heartburn. However, he wasn't uncomfortable for very long. They quickly got absorbed through his skin and entered the budding new crystals, growing them by a tiny amount. Meanwhile, the woman just finished processing what she heard after a minute of shock. You're talented in all the 4 main elements. Dear gosh, that's why your assessment is handled by the Tower Master. She found it weird that the Tower Master personally took time out of his busy schedule to assess the magic of a 5-year-old boy. She thought it was just because his last name was Vanderbilt, but it turned out it was because of his enormous talent in the mystic arts. She'd never seen a quadruple mastery mage in her entire life, and only heard about it in tales and legends of old. It was a sobering feeling after she looked at the unassuming normal boy like Michael and compared him to the heroes of the past. Why don't you make yourself comfortable in the magic tower? I'll have to hurry the Tower Master from his business and assess you immediately. This is too important. The woman immediately took out a long broomstick from her magic ring and sat on it before it started to float away into the distance. Did she really just leave a 5-year-old boy alone? Michael shrugged. He could take care of himself. This was for the better as well. He wanted to take his time and observe every mage in the magic tower to learn all kinds of spells from their practice sessions. He walked toward the portal-like entrance of the tower with excitement filling his face. When he stepped foot on the other side, the first thing he noticed was that the inside was a lot bigger than what the magic tower looked like from the outside. As he took to his new surroundings, awe filled his face. All along the walls were oil paintings of human portraits that seemed to be moving like they were human. Some bowed towards him, while others ignored him and continued whatever they were doing in the painting. He looked up and saw floating staircases leading to nowhere. He saw mages further up the ceiling walking upside down without their pointy hat falling to the floor. It felt like he was looking at an illusion. Dancing candles lit up the room, chasing each other around the air like little kids playing in the fields. Talking books, pillars, and doors were normal in this place. Some tempted Michael to open their door. Some warned him not to, and others laughed at seeing him ignore the mystical objects in the chamber. Michael must have spent about 10 minutes marveling at everything he saw in the magic tower. It was everything he thought it would be, and more. It made him wonder how the authors of his previous world got a lot of things right when they were creating magic towers in their stories. He continued wandering through the chamber, peering through the different halls that led to different parts of the tower. From what he heard about Castell's brief visit to the magic tower, the first floor was available for the public to see and marvel at. It was supposed to be a place where mages presented their magic to strike awe and amazement in the eyes of normal people. But no matter where he looked, there seemed to be no such presentation of any kind. There weren't even any mages there to welcome him at all. Where's the conjurations? Where's the sorcery? Where are the spells? I have sensed no use of mana in this vicinity. However, there is some evidence of human activity in that direction. I suggest you investigate the hallway further. Michael followed ChatJK1's directions and followed a winding hallway that led to a different chamber. As he got closer to the next room, Michael heard the sounds of something banging on a table. And it wasn't just one sound, it was a collection of one. He passed through the open door and saw the circular interior of the room, with shelves housing thousands of books lining the walls. This looked like a library, but instead of silence and peace, there were a lot of people gathered around the railings and peering down to the center of the room. Ho ho ho, what a blunder. I expected more from him. How could he let his pawn get taken away? The top spot is still up for grabs. It's a tight competition. Michael listened to the chatter of the spectators and couldn't help but feel as if he knew what was going on. He squeezed through the crowd and looked through the wooden railings. Pack, tick, pack. The sounds of hundreds of chess pieces banging on wooden boards filled his ears. On the lower floor of this library, there were about 100 square tables containing one chess board each, with some pieces sprawled around the edges and some still standing proudly in their designated spots. Imagine Michael's surprise when he learned the real reason why he couldn't see mages performing their magic spells. They were too busy playing chess. He didn't know what to feel. Happy that Reborn chess was spreading fast, or sad that they were too obsessed with the game to show him spells to learn. As usual, Michael was suffering from success. Michael found the stairs leading down and joined the collection of serious mages focused on the game. He did not travel for 4 hours in a bumpy carriage ride to the waste-ridden Kingsbridge city just so that the mages would spend the whole day playing chess. He wanted magic spells. Checkmate, I win. One particular game ended, with the winner announcing his proud victory out loud. The loser quickly left the table, desolate and saddened. Michael approached the winner. Excuse me, but aren't you going to perform magic spells in front of the crowd? He pointed towards a crowd up on the second floor. The man, having just been on a victory high, graciously answered Michael's question. There's no need for that anymore, answered the bespectacled mage. Instead, we have daily chess tournaments to show our advanced intellect to the good people of Kingsbridge. Normal people don't really understand magic anyway. If they see something colorful, they clap, even if it's just a 1-star spell. I perform a boring 5-star spell, and they barely react. But with this chess tournament, even normal people could understand how the mages from the Guild of Arcana are superior in intellect to any other job. They also know how to play chess, so they recognize when one player is better than them. Michael was so disheartened that he had to sit down on the chair. He was so excited to analyze every spell he saw from the mages, only to find out they no longer performed spells for the general public. If he hadn't invented chess, Michael sighed. He was his own worst enemy, but he didn't want to give up. He looked at the scattered chess pieces on the board, and an idea formed in his mind. He collected the chess pieces and arranged them into their correct spots. The bespectacled mage shot a weird look at Michael. Kid, my next opponent is going to be here soon. You don't even know what you're doing. The mage thought Michael was just playing around with the pieces, but he was surprised to find out that the pieces were correctly placed with no mistakes. The queen was even in the right place, which most rookies tend to forget. Michael then took out a leather pouch from his pocket and plopped it onto the table, with a satisfying catching sound reaching the bespectacled mage. Gold coins, he muttered, already tempted. How about we play a game of chess? If you win, I'll give you 100 gold coins. If I win, you have to perform one magic spell in front of my eyes, Michael said, with a devious grin on his face. The mage looked at Michael with suspicion. It seemed too easy. He only had to beat a 5-year-old kid, and he would win a prize equivalent to doing odd jobs through the city for an entire month. And the consequences weren't that bad either. He just had to perform a spell in front of a kid. It was too good to be true. It sounded like a trap, but I could use more money to buy a new broomstick, the mage pondered. Then, he looked at Michael with all seriousness. No take-backs, he warned Michael. No take-backs, Michael replied as he made the first move. Duck. A couple of minutes later, the bespectacled mage had his head in his hands as he watched Michael absolutely decimate his pieces with nothing but a knight and a rook. I can't believe it. I lost, to a kid, no less. He was entirely outclassed. The mage was mad for a second since his pride was hurt, but after thinking about the game, he became intensely curious at the advanced tactics Michael showed that nobody had ever thought of before. Checkmate, Michael said, knocking down his opponent's king off the board. The bespectacled mage went silent for a few seconds before bombarding Michael with tons of questions. During this part, why did you move your bishop to this place? Also, you could have taken my queen, but you didn't. I realized that it led to my downfall, but how did you think of that? I thought I was winning, until I wasn't. Michael saw pure curiosity coming out of the mage's eyes. He could see why intellectual minds like him were so taken with this game. Sometimes it's better to sacrifice pieces to get a better position. Michael answered. He spilled out all the lessons he learned while playing chess in his previous world, and the man listened to him without ever uttering a single word. He no longer treated Michael as just a 5-year-old child. I see, thank you. That was very insightful. I feel like my game has improved so much. Michael appreciated it. You're welcome, he said. But of course, he couldn't forget their agreement. I'm out about my prize. The mage was so busy consolidating the lessons he learned that he almost completely forgot about their deal. Oh, right. I have to show you a spell, right? Michael nodded. The mage thought long and hard about what spell he was going to show Michael. If it was before, he would have simply shown him a 1-star spell and been done with it. But he couldn't do that to Michael. Not after he taught him so much about chess. Look closely. This is a 3-star spell called Cloud of Daggers. The bespectacled mage raised his hand and gathered mana at the tip of his fingers. Then, illusionary daggers made out of violet mystic aura appeared around the mage, circling him at fast speeds. Michael reckoned that anyone who tried to get close to the guy would immediately be ripped to shreds by those daggers. Analyzing magic. Magic theory acquired. Cloud of Daggers. Fire and dark element. This magic creates a sea of daggers revolving around the user in a 1-meter outer radius from the body. Michael read the magic's description and was satisfied with its defensive abilities. It would be very useful to a guy like him who didn't like to fight with his hands. Thanks, Michael said. Just then, another mage walked towards them and got curious as to what they were doing. I just won my match, and we're supposed to be fighting next round. Wait, looks like you lost your game, the scruffy man said as he observed the chessboard. The bespectacled man quickly explained. What happened was, a few minutes later, the scruffy man was all caught up with what happened in the match. Then, he couldn't help but look at Michael and ask, 100 gold if I win, right? A devious smile appeared on Michael's face. And so the grift began. A few minutes later, Michael had another win in his belt. I lost, the scruffy mage said in utter disbelief. He couldn't believe how easily a 5-year-old kid beat him in just a couple of moves. Michael felt bad for the guy. It was as if they were the kid, and he was the adult bullying them in a grown man's game. As a consolation prize, he decided to give him pointers on how to avoid being checkmated in less than 20 moves. When I put my queen here, you should have been wary of my next move, because... Michael replayed the moves on the chessboard and taught the scruffy mage about what would have happened if he made the right moves. The man slapped his own head after realizing how much he blundered, and he couldn't believe that Michael was able to think that far ahead. The man had to put down his hat on the table, showing Michael the respect he deserved. You have bested me, clear as day, and as promised, I will hold up my end of the bargain and perform one of my signature 4-star spells. The scruffy man raised his hand and snapped his fingers, with mana particles shooting out of his hand and forming into a definite shape once it was out in the air. An animate crow with a transparent body entirely made out of violet mystic energy appeared in the air. The crow circled Michael's head, with its eyes showing clarity as if it were a real living being. Michael looked back at the man and saw his eyes had turned milky white. This is a 4-star spell called Mystic Crow Summon. It allows you to create a crow that you can completely control. Magic theory acquired. Mystic Crow Summon. Dark and lightning element. This magic creates a summoned crow. The user can see everything that the crow sees. These are very useful spells that Michael could use someday. The Cloud of Daggers looked like a great offensive and defensive spell, while the Mystic Crow Summon was great for scouting ahead. Even though he wasn't planning on putting himself in danger, he couldn't deny that the danger could come to him at some point in the future. This was a fantasy world, after all. Young man, can I have a go next? Michael saw a couple more mages waiting in line to sit at the chair opposite him. They were part of the small crowd that saw what Michael did to defeat the scruffy magician. They felt amazed at his chess strategies and wanted to fight him at least once. But perhaps the reason why they were so eager to play against him was the tutoring session after each battle. The 2 mages that Michael defeated came out of the match with looks of excitement and curiosity. They wanted to experience that too. And the price to pay for this immensely helpful lesson was just a simple magic presentation for the little child. It was more than a bargain, seeing that they were being personally tutored by a master of chess. As long as you show me your spells, I'm willing to take you on, Michael said, preparing the chess pieces for another game. Time passed by as Michael defeated mage after mage without breaking a sweat. These mages were so inexperienced with chess that they were falling for easy traps and setups that were extremely popular back in his previous life. Michael exploited this weakness to defeat as many mages as possible, with the express intent of farming their magic spells. And as he defeated more and more, he started to gather the attention of the whole room. Even one of the front runners to win the whole chess tournament was tempted to fight against Michael. And as usual, Michael beat him as well, albeit with a little more effort. This skyrocketed his reputation within the Magic Tower, with almost all the mages lining up to try and get a chance to beat the unstoppable 5-year-old kid. Magic theory acquired. Magic theory acquired. Magic theory acquired. Magic theory acquired. Please, let me go next. One mage pushed through the crowd and raised his hand. No, I'm next. I've been waiting for forever. Another mage pushed him back. I should go next. I already beat you, so there's no chance you'll win against the kid. Winning isn't my intention. I just want to learn how to get better. Michael sat in the middle of the library with his table, getting crowded by a sea of overly eager mages. He was glad that he was learning a lot of spells, but there came a point where there were just too many of them. Most of the spells he learned were cool, but had little practical uses. He had to get picky. The spells I'm seeing are getting boring. If any one of you can present me with an interesting spell, then I'll battle them next round, Michael announced. His words sent the mages into a frenzy. They immediately shouted their most secret and sacred spells out loud, just so that they could get a chance to play a round of chess with Michael. I can show you a 4-star spell called Duplicity. It will create 3 clones beside you that make it virtually impossible to see which one is the real thing. That's nothing. My 4-star spell can summon a giant meteor from the sky to rain down onto the ground. I have a 5-star spell called Cloud Surf. You can summon a moving cloud under your feet that you can use to traverse the air like a bird. Michael was interested in a lot of them, but he couldn't decide which one he was going to choose. Just then, amid all the chaotic shouting of the mages, an old serene voice somehow won amongst the rest and reached Michael's ears. Go. If it's a spell you want to see, then how about an 8-star spell called Draconic Blaze? The rest of the mages went silent as they heard this voice. They wouldn't dare speak out. They slowly made way for him as he walked towards Michael with a leisurely step. By now, the crowd around the library had gotten a lot larger. A friend told a friend who told a friend that a genius 5-year-old kid was beating up the mages at Reborn Chess. They all came to the Magic Tower, flooding the 2nd floor just for a chance to see one of the games. Whoa, who's that old dude? He looks weak. Why do the other mages let him be the next one in line? From what they saw, the old man had just arrived and didn't even participate in the previous chess tournament. There were plenty of other candidates who hadn't gotten their chance. But strangely enough, the competitive mages meekly stepped aside and let the old man approach the table. Silence was their only response. As the normal people tried to wonder about the real identity of the old man, one of the more knowledgeable citizens had a glint of recognition in his eyes. I recognize him. That white beard flowing down to his waist, that peaceful smile on his face, the white pointy hat. That's the Tower Master. The spectators gasped. Nobody had ever seen the rumored 8-star Tower Master of Kingsbridge out in the open. They heard he stayed at the top of the Magic Tower at all times and only bothered to come down during important events. They didn't think this would be considered as one. He's the Tower Master? Michael thought. I thought he was just joking about knowing an 8-star magic spell. The Tower Master kept his smile as he sat down opposite Michael at the chess table. How about it, kid? Do we have an agreement? If you beat me, I will perform one of my best spells in front of your very eyes. Michael pondered for a second. And what if I lose? The Tower Master smiled, impressed that a 5-year-old kid had the presence of mind to worry about consequences. If you lose, you'll join our Magic Tower as my apprentice. The Tower Master's declaration sent the mages into an uproar. Becoming the apprentice of the 8-star, tranquil, blazing King of Fire was an intensely coveted position that most prodigies fail to even qualify for. They were confused as to why that was the losing condition. It was a prize for the 5-year-old kid rather than a punishment. And even then, they couldn't understand why the Tower Master offered such a prestigious honor to this child. Sure, he was, by all extents, a prodigious talent in chess, but that wasn't enough to become the Tower Master's apprentice. Who is this kid anyway? I thought he was just a normal child. But is there something special with him? Even the spectators above couldn't help but gossip about Michael. Most of the people here were fans of mages, so they knew about the best talents and upcoming geniuses of the younger generation. But none of them recognized Michael. He wasn't from the famous magic families or the talented knight families. This intrigued them. If Michael was talented enough in magic that the Tower Master was offering him an apprenticeship, they should have known about him by now. But Michael's identity was still shrouded in mystery. They would have never thought that the youngest son of the Vanderbilt family, a lineage known only for their business acumen, would bring the most talented up-and-coming magician of the current times. What's wrong? Don't like the conditions? The Tower Master asked, stroking his long white beard. Although Michael wasn't worried about losing, he didn't like the idea of being forced to stay in a magic tower for his entire life. Are you perhaps scared of losing? The old man teased. And that was enough reason for Michael. Let's play then, Michael said as he moved the white pawn. Immediately, Michael realized that he was playing with an opponent unlike anyone he had ever played before. It was as if he was playing against someone from his previous life, who knew all the tricks and openings established through 1,000 years of chess history. He had to think longer about making his moves, or else he would find himself on the losing side. He had to get serious. The rest of the mages and spectators observed the high-level battle between the two of them with nothing but silence, reigning in their gasps of surprise whenever one of them made an amazing move. Time passed as Michael and the Tower Master engaged in a close battle, exchanging captures with each other. Slowly, their pieces lessened, with each side playing with nothing but their pawns, a bishop, and their king. Whoa, the two of them are head-to-head. I don't know who's winning. Nobody had ever lasted this long against the kid. As he met his match, I think the Tower Master will win. He's a world-class 8-star wizard after all. The moves continued, with Michael's only bishop getting cornered by 2 pawns. He had a choice to make. He could choose to save his bishop, but risk his king an unfavorable position, or let his only bishop be captured, turning the tides on their battle for the Tower Master. Either way, it looked like the old man was about to win. It was a delicate situation. Would you like me to show you a checkmate win in 7 moves? Asked Chad JK1. There's no need, Michael replied. Although he looked like he was in trouble, Michael had seen enough late-game moves from some of the pros back in his previous life to know exactly how to win this game. It's your move next, said the Tower Master, with a bit of haughtiness in his voice. He thought he had the game in the bag. But as Michael reached for his move, he chose to pick up a pawn on the opposite side of the board, completely surprising the crowd and the Tower Master. They gasped, thinking that the 5-year-old boy finally made a blunder. But the more knowledgeable chess players considered Michael's move and tried to play it out in their heads. And they quickly realized that this was a killing move. A frown formed on the Tower Master's face as he too realized the significance of that seemingly blunder-like move. After a few seconds, a smile broke out on his face, continuing with a raucous laughter that filled the library. Ha! I lost. The Tower Master, realizing his inevitable defeat, chose to surrender rather than play out the game. No matter what move he made, Michael would have cornered his king either way. There was amusement on the 8-star wizard as he looked at Michael. He had heard a lot about the Vanderbilt boy, but thought that they were too far-fetched to believe. He heard from his previous student, Lilia, that Michael created running water without the use of magic, created a mechanism to keep accurate track of time, and even made a hot spring in their backyard. Knowing about Lilia's tendency to become too proud of her son, the Tower Master thought that she was exaggerating. But after witnessing him up close and personal, he was convinced. This child was brilliant, plain and simple. He too had become one of the mages addicted to the game of Reborn chess and played it non-stop ever since it was invented. It even led to a rumor that he stayed in his room all day like a hermit. But in truth, he was busy playing Reborn chess with other intellectuals at his level. It came to a point where he thought he was the best player in the game. He was proven wrong. The Tower Master wanted Michael to be his apprentice just for his chess talent alone. That way, he could have someone to play Reborn chess with every day. But the Tower Master noticed something else within the boy. Even when the child was busy concentrating on the game, the elemental mana particles continued to be absorbed into his body. It wasn't being sucked into his body. The more proper explanation was that the mana particles shot themselves toward him, as if he was deeply beloved by the universe. It was as if he was in a state of perpetual meditation, continuously gathering mana and improving his cores at all times. It took the Tower Master 2 decades to master that technique, yet a 5-year-old child was able to do it flawlessly. Michael's level of genius was simply absurd. When he heard that Michael had a quadruple mana mastery, he wanted to teach the child personally and lead him to the peak of mystic arts. But he quickly realized that Michael was too talented. All magic came naturally for the child, and any guidance he would teach him could have the opposite effect. After all, just like every mage in the world, he was stuck as an 8-star mage with no way of advancing. He didn't want Michael to become like him. Perhaps it was better to let Michael grow naturally, just like the previous legendary heroes of old who reached the mythical 9-star realm. "I haven't introduced myself," the Tower Master said. "I am Cerberus Aujandor, the 10th Master of the Kingsbridge Magic Tower." Michael accepted his hands and introduced himself as well. "I'm Michael von Vanderbilt." And when the crowd heard his surname, they went into an uproar. "Vanderbilt? He's the youngest son of that family. Whoa!" A Vanderbilt was able to beat the Tower Master in Reborn chess. Who knew they birthed such a talented young child? Seeing the rowdy spectators, Cerberus invited Michael to a more private location. "Let's talk in my chambers," he said before snapping his fingers. And suddenly, Michael found himself in a completely different room, away from the noisy library and the chess-hungry mages. Instant teleportation? Chat JK1. Tell me you were able to analyze that. Analyzing magic. Magic theory acquired. Translocation. Light and dark element. This magic allows the user to teleport to any location that the user has visited before. Just learning a 7-star teleportation spell was enough for this whole trip to be worth it. Where are we? Michael looked around and saw a huge dome chamber with a clear window overlooking the skies. Complicated magic circles floated all around the room, along with different mundane objects like pins and globes acting without gravity. "This is the top floor of the magic tower, my solace, my sanctum, and the only place that I call home," Cerberus said, spreading his hands. Michael wouldn't have guessed that answer. This chamber didn't look like a room, but a space observatory instead. There wasn't even a bed in sight for anyone to sleep in. "What's that?" Michael asked as he pointed at the center of the room, where a large collection of floating light points were connected through intersecting lines. It looked like one of those virtual projections of neural networks that he saw in sci-fi movies back in his previous life. "That is a library," Cerberus explained. "Every book, scroll, and knowledge that the Magic Tower has accumulated throughout all the years is contained here in this place." Michael couldn't help but stare in wonder at the Magic Tower's library. This must have been the equivalent of a computer in this fantasy world, which was probably even more complicated since magic was more complex than a bunch of ones and zeros. "I promise you the presentation of an 8-star magic spell, but I'll give you the chance for something better. You're planning on learning about better spells, right? Well, it's better to start at the beginning. I can give you access to the best magic spells this world can offer, from the easiest 1-star spell to the very complicated 8-star spell. In the future, you can visit this magic tower and access this magical library to learn and get better at casting the mystic arts." Cerberus' proposal was a lot better than their original deal, so Michael was inclined to accept. Since this magical library contained all the spells that this magic tower accumulated throughout its entire history, Michael would gain more spells in the long run. But then a thought popped up in his head. The thought was so shocking that it sent a bolt of electricity running through his spine. His idea was so bold and enticing that his body couldn't help itself and moved entirely on its own. Michael walked forward, his eyes staring at the moving points and lines of the library. He raised his hand and touched one of the floating points. As soon as his skin made contact with the network, a ripple in reality propagated through the magic library like a serene pond being touched by a bird's beak. Suddenly, all the information in the magic library transferred from the tip of his hands, all the way over to his brain, connecting to the magic library, downloading its contents. Warning, there is an overload of information surging through your mind. Emergency shutdown of your body engaged for safety purposes. Michael saw the world turn dark as his body slumped down on the floor. Updating software. Supreme skill obtained. Emergency shutdown lifted in 3, 2, 1. Michael regained his senses, and the first thing he noticed was the heaviness in his chest. It felt like his ribcage was about to be crushed. Am I dying again? Oh, Michael, what happened to you? Michael thought he was going to meet God again after just 5 years of reincarnation, but the sobbing voice of his mother brought him back to reality. He slowly opened his eyes, reminiscent of when he was born 5 years ago. Mom! Lilia had her head on his chest, embracing him with such a grip that even death itself could not rip her little boy away from her arms. She was the reason why his heart felt so heavy. Oh, Michael, you're awake. Lilia brightened up once she saw her dear boy open his eyes. She immediately wrapped her hands around his head, almost suffocating him. Lilia, it's not a good idea to smother the boy after he just woke up. Michael heard the voice of Cerberus in the room, but he couldn't see him courtesy of his mother. HPMH, this is your fault, old man. We leave him in your care for half a day, and you already made him pass out. We're never returning to this place ever again, Lilia said, hissing at the revered 8-star wizard like he was an unwanted fly in the room. Please, honey, even if he was your master, you cannot talk to a tower master like this. Bard tried to talk some sense into his wife, but she was far too emotional after hearing about Michael's sudden collapse. No, it's all right, said Cerberus, admitting his fault. I didn't know he would pass out after making contact with the magic library. I have never heard of this phenomenon before, and for that, I apologize. Michael himself didn't know what happened. The last thing he remembered was the feeling of his entire body heating up like an intense fever had overcome his entire being. He felt his head swell up, as if he'd been doing a handstand for an hour and pooling all the blood into his brain. He thought his head was about to explode. But after that, he remembered nothing. Hey ChatJK1, what happened to me after I touched the magic library? Greetings, Michael. Immediately, something was weird. ChatJK1 never addressed him by his name before, only by you or user. What's happening? Making contact with the magic library allowed all its contents to be downloaded into this network. However, the amount of information contained in those nodes far surpassed the capacity of your adolescent brain. To prevent further damage, the emergency shutdown of your body was initiated. During your unconsciousness, I have used the entire contents of the magic library to upgrade this software. Greetings, Michael. I am ChatJK2, your personal AI assistant, knowledgeable in the mystic arts. Michael knew that something would happen once he touched the network of the magic library, but he would have never expected that it would lead to an upgraded software of ChatJK1. Knowledgeable in the mystic arts? Does that mean that you know a lot about magic and spells? Yes, Michael. The magic library consists of a lot of basic knowledge about the magic that was gathered in the entire 893 years of history of the Kingsbridge Magic Tower. Cool. What can you do with that? Using the current understanding of magic in this world, I was able to compile your magical abilities into an easy system for you to understand. Would you like to see it? Of course, Michael said yes. And the moment he did, he saw words and graph tables floating in front of him like a screen. He immediately recognized this to be a system, just like the ones he saw in anime and fantasy books. But unlike other systems, Michael's looked simple. Michael Von Vanderbilt. Magic Talent. SSS Plus Class. Element Mastery. Not applicable. Magic Purity. 99.99%. Mana Quantity. Not applicable. Realm. 2-star Novice Magician. Michael looked at the contents of his system and couldn't help but complain about its incomplete data. His mastery and mana quantity were written down as not applicable, meaning not applicable. He didn't understand it. The current method to gauge a mage's element mastery does not apply to you. They do not account for a single mage to have the talent and mastery in every mana element in existence. Oh, it's good then. This is probably one of the talents that God gave me when I was reincarnated. I'm just talented in all magic, I guess. If the Tower Master heard Michael's thoughts, he would have passed out from shock. What about my magic quantity? Why doesn't it have any number? The method to measure the mana gathered in the core is not applicable to your current situation. Why not? The mana gathering that you're currently using is optimized only for the earth mana. Since you are talented in all the elements, it is inadvisable to continue using this mana gathering for the other elements in your body. The magic library contains other mana gathering techniques that are specialized for the other mana elements. However, it is inefficient to use a different meditation technique for each elemental mana in your body. Using the newly acquired mystic art knowledge from the magic library, a synthesized version of all mana gathering techniques has been created during the software update. Michael watched as a few words appeared in his vision, with their font and style evoking a sense of grandiosity along with the golden aura surrounding each letter. Supreme skill, unity gathering. Whoa, a supreme skill that sounds supreme? Supreme skill. Unity gathering will allow you to gather any and all mana in your surroundings, bypassing the need to store them in your cores. Your mana quantity is virtually limitless. You have a unique sense for the mana in your surroundings, with no spell preventing you from seeing mana anywhere. You have mastery over all mana, whether they be out in the open or contained in any vessel. Those last words evoked a jolt from Michael once he realized the full potential of his supreme skill. If those words worked just as he thought, then it might be the most broken skill in existence. ChatJK 2. Does my supreme skill allow me to control mana that is not mine? That is correct. You're able to exert influence over other beings' mana. The level of control you have over their mana will depend on the difference in the mastery of the spell. Michael had to admit that the supreme skill he obtained was nothing less than a golden cheat like those powers in anime and fantasy books. If he could control the mana of anyone he met, then he could disrupt any spell they were trying to cast. Or better yet, he could turn the magic around and let the caster be the target of their own spell. So, this is a supreme skill. I'm surprised you're able to make such a strong skill on your own. ChatJK2. That is one of the benefits of the software update. Does this mean that you can create any kind of spell that I can think of? Can you synthesize everything into a magic spell? Synthesizing new spells is possible. However, it is only limited to 3-star magic spells and below. The information stored in this magic library is expansive, but there are still a lot of gaps in knowledge. To synthesize new spells above the 3-star level, a new software update is required. Obtaining new information from other sources, such as a magic library, will contribute well to the next update. Then, ChatJK2 flashed a progress bar in his vision. Progress to next update, 0%. It was as if ChatJK2 was giving him a request. Give me more mystic knowledge, it said. Of course, Michael was incredibly motivated to do so as well. After all, the stronger his personal AI assistant became, the easier his life became. Case in point, he earned a really powerful supreme skill this time around. He could only imagine what more he would get in the next update. Michael inwardly decided to find more sources of knowledge in the future. Oh, baby, what's happening to you? Lillian noticed Michael's absent stare into the void and thought something had gone wrong with him again. Michael quickly snapped out of his focus on ChatJK2 and back to the present. And the first thing he noticed was that he could see, with crystal clear clarity, all the mana present in the Tower Master's chamber. Mana looked like fuzzy microscopic balls made out of tiny wiggling strings. And as he observed the mana around him, it looked like the mana was observing him as well. They regarded him with curiosity, as if this was the first time someone had actually looked at them with such clarity. Then, Michael's eyes were drawn to his mother, where he saw the intricate crystalline core forming inside her body. Suddenly, a screen popped up in front of his eyes, detailing her magic qualities. Lilia von Vanderbilt. Title: Earth and Witch of the West. Magic Talent, S-Class. Element Mastery, Earth. Magic Purity, 90%. Mana Quantity, 91,493 mana. Realm, 7-star Expert Mage. So this is what it means to sense all mana in my surroundings. This is very useful. Michael realized he was still staring at his mother, so he quickly shook his head and acted normally. I'm fine, Mom. I was just trying to get a grip on myself. Lilia rubbed his hair in worry. Don't push yourself too much, dear. Meanwhile, Bart looked over to Cerberus. Tower Master, is there any way we can be sure that this won't happen again? The 8-star mage was ashamed to say that he was clueless. He couldn't find the answer as to why Michael passed out after touching the magic library. I don't know why it happened, but I can assure you that there is no threat to Michael's body. I checked his well-being the entire time and saw no signs of degradation in his mental and physical state. It was as if he was just asleep. Bart felt relieved after hearing that. It was a scary thought to think that Michael would suddenly drop unconscious out of nowhere without an explanation. Can we do something to prevent it? Bart asked. Cerberus stroked his long white beard and pondered for a second. Then he snapped his fingers and manifested an old and tattered brown book with its pages yellowing from years of exposure. It's best if Michael focuses on improving his physical health first and foremost. His magical talents have manifested too early, creating an imbalance in his body that may have contributed to his sudden unconsciousness. The Tower Master walked over to Michael and handed him the book. This is an earth magic technique that can help you improve your body by strengthening it with earth mana, turning it as resilient as the hardest of minerals. You will have a natural earth defense in your body without ever casting a single spell. This is a progressive technique, meaning that it will get better the more you practice and master it. The magic technique starts as a 1-star spell, but has the potential to reach the 9-star level. Michael received the book with dust poofing out of the cover. This spell can reach the 9-star level. Michael asked in wonderment. Yes, but it is quite an outdated practice because it takes a lot of time and commitment for one to reach a reasonably strong defense. This was a product of a time when defensive spells were uncommon. Once more emerged that could be cast within a second and didn't need copious amounts of time to practice. This technique became obsolete. But it doesn't matter to you. We only need to improve your physical resiliency. So practicing this technique till the 2nd level will suffice. Lilia quickly took the book and nodded to herself, feeling that it was a sufficient earth technique for Michael to learn. As soon as we get home, I'll help you train so that this will never happen again. Michael and his family went back to the Vanderbilt residence soon after the business with the magic tower was over. Lilia didn't want Michael to spend another second in that place, fearing that he would fall unconscious yet again. But thankfully, Cerberus certified his talent in magic, officially recording him as a quadruple talent mage. Michael looked at the tattered book in his hands. This was the magic technique given to him by the Tower Master to improve his physical well-being. According to him, this magic had the potential to become a 9-star spell. This made Michael wonder why it wasn't very popular with mages now. It seemed like such a good spell. ChatJK2, can you read the contents of this book? Certainly. ChatJK2 replied. Michael flipped through the pages, taking careful caution not to rip the paper out of the book. It didn't take more than 10 minutes for ChatJK2 to completely absorb the technique into its memory. Magic theory obtained. Progress to next update. 0.01%. Internal Earth Defense. Plus, Earth Element. This is a passive spell that is always activated and needs no intervention from a user. Earth mana must be integrated into the user's skin and internal organs, creating an internal defense with the same hardness and resilience as Earth minerals. This skill proves to be an unbreakable defense against air element attacks, as long as the attacking spell is not higher than the star rating of this skill. The user must continue to cultivate the skill to improve its star rating. Michael looked at the description of the skill and realized why it had fallen out of fashion with most mages. To improve the defense, Michael had to gather earth mana and imbue it onto his entire body. The problem was that he had to take precious time away from improving his mana core to continue cultivating this one spell. Most mages would rather not waste time building an earth-type defense and continue to improve their mana cores. Although this type of defense was good against air magic, because of the inherent advantage of earth over air, it wasn't that good of a defense against other elements. It would be better to learn defense spells of different elements to keep themselves safe. I like the idea of a passive defense, but it's only good against air magic. ChatJK2, can you create this kind of spell, but in different elements, so that I can have a defense against every element magic spell? Creating defense spells is possible. However, it is inadvisable for you to cultivate multiple of them at the same time, as it would waste too much time and resources. Would you like me to synthesize a new skill instead? You can do that. Wait, what's the difference between a skill and a spell? Michael received the supreme skill, but didn't want to think too much about it, because it was too powerful. However, now was the perfect time for him to know the distinction between the two. According to the records in the Magic Tower, a spell is something that mages cast using the mana in their cores. Anyone can learn a magic spell as long as they know the magic theory, and anyone can cast them as long as they have the right mana in their cores. A skill is different because they are spells that cannot be learned through normal means. It is a talent that manifests naturally and cannot be taught to other beings. Would you like me to create a new skill with your specifications? Michael nodded his head enthusiastically. Skills look to be a much more special type of spell, one that was unique to each individual. Why wouldn't Michael want one for himself? Synthesizing new skill. Complete. Skill. Absolute Unity Defense. Plus, Unity Element. This skill creates a passive defense against any and all types of magic. This defense is impervious to any magic spells or skills that are below or the same star rating as this skill. Cultivating this skill does not interfere with the growth of the mana cores. Michael stared in wonder at the new skill given to him by ChatJK2. This was the type of defense that he desired for all this time. If he cultivated this skill to the 2-star rating, then he wouldn't be hurt or affected by all kinds of 2-star spells. It was much better than the original technique, since that one only protected him against air spells. Since this skill used all types of mana, or what ChatJK2 liked to call Unity, there was virtually no weakness that other mages could exploit. It didn't matter if they threw blazing magma, raging lightning bolts, or freezing icicles. None of them would break his defense. The best part was that this skill could continue to grow up to a 9-star rating, meaning that in the future, he would be practically invincible. Michael von Vanderbilt. Magic Talent. SSS Plus Class. Element Mastery. Not applicable. Magic Purity. 99.99%. Mana Quantity. Not applicable. Realm. 2-star Novice Magician. Progress to next update. 0.01%. Supreme Skill. Unity Gathering. Skills. Absolute Unity Defense. Learn Spells. 1-star. Water Ball. Ember. Rock Throw. Judging from the way ChatJK2 presented his skills, it looked like he could get more of them in the future. As for his supreme skill, Michael treated it like a trump card or an ultimate power. He doubted that he could get something that powerful again. Michael continued his daily life in the mansion, with his mother preventing him from leaving the mansion for the time being. She was even more traumatized than him after his episode at the Magic Tower. She didn't allow him to leave the estate for as long as she was sure that he would never fall unconscious ever again. And to achieve that, she continued to teach and tutor Michael on improving his physical well-being. She helped him practice the internal earth defense spell that Cerberus gave him. Secretly, though, he improved his absolute Unity defense skill instead. He did 100 push-ups every day, ran a 2-kilometer circumference around the estate, and did 100 crunches, all while gathering mana in his body, strengthening it from the inside and out. Time passed until it was 5 years later. A young boy looked at his reflection in the mirror. He tugged on his golden hair, which had grown long enough to reach his ears. Instead of the skinny boy from before, Michael had grown into the makings of a man. Now that he was 10 years old, his body had started to develop with a little more meat on his bones. Training nothing but his body for the last 5 years had allowed him to reach good physical fitness, even better than his previous life. He put on his clothes and strolled out of his room with a pep in his step. Beretta, the veteran maid, passed by him with a plate full of food on both her hands. "Young master, please take an umbrella with you when you go out. It's raining outside," she warned. But Michael continued to walk out the door without a care in the world. Just as Beretta warned, there was quite a bit of downpour outside, even though the skies looked so clear. It didn't matter, though. He stepped foot outside, with the raindrops falling just an inch short of Michael's entire body. A strange, almost invisible layer of prismatic coating prevented the water from wetting his hair and clothes. Michael had practiced his absolute unity defense skill to the 4-star level, meaning that he was invulnerable to any and all kinds of magic that were below the 4th level. And since rain was a naturally occurring source of water mana, it was equivalent to a 1-star water ball spell. If he didn't want to get wet, Michael would never get wet. As for his mana cores, he was the equivalent of a 4-star mage as well. He would have advanced much further, but the presence of unique elements such as the lightning and poison mana was hard to acquire. He had to ask Cerberus for some mana stones that contained those elements. The Tower Master frequented the Vanderbilt estate with the pretense of overlooking Michael's magic, but in truth, the old man simply wanted to play Reborn chess with him. Of course, Michael would always win. And the funny thing was that the Tower Master wasn't even the second-best player in the Vanderbilt estate. That honor was retained by Sebastian, who came very close to beating Michael a couple of times throughout the years. Magic wasn't the only thing that Michael worked on for the last 5 years. His Reborn company continued to expand its name throughout the other cities and villages. Business had been slowly growing, with his income becoming too much to even count. Michael didn't bother with all of those because most of the money they earned was invested back into the company. Castell continued to employ craftsmen, blacksmiths, and even mages under the company banner, expanding the products they could produce. Of course, he continued to invent new things to keep their products fresh in people's minds. For example, Michael created the very first matchstick. He wasn't going to sell it at first, and only intended it to help the maids light fires during the winter. But once Castell saw how easy it was to create fire without magic, she begged him to let her sell it as a Reborn product. Just like the first boom of soap and shampoo, matchsticks became a hot product in their business. But even though the number of matchboxes they sold far outnumbered the number of soap and shampoo they sold, it didn't bring in much money. After all, he only sold the matchboxes at about 20 copper coins. Despite that, it was still worth it. This ended up becoming the catalyst that helped Reborn become widely known in the small villages and cities outside Kingsbridge. After all, the citizens of those places didn't have money to hire their own fire mages like the wealthy citizens of Kingsbridge. So, having easy access to fire became a literal lifesaver for most people, which was what Michael wanted in the first place. He created more products that greatly improved people's quality of life. He created the compass, which became a must-buy for people traveling all the time. Another was eyeglasses, which allowed most people to regain their ability to read. All of those contributed to the profit and reputation of the Reborn company. One big project he worked on during the years was a revolutionary form of transportation, the bicycle. He still wouldn't forget that moment when everyone in the Vanderbilt estate gathered in the backyard to try out the bicycles on their own. Many fell to the ground, getting cuts and bruises on their elbows. But still, the smiles on their faces were priceless. His mother and father tried it as well, with Bart quickly getting captivated with the desire to use it for his daily trips to Kingsbridge. Of course, that was quickly shut down once Lilia and the maids expressed their concerns about his safety. The bike was much faster than walking, with less effort as well. It was especially useful for the maids and butlers, who had to traverse the large and expansive Vanderbilt estate every day, keeping the area well tended. With the help of ChatJK2 and the myriad of 2 to 3-star magic spells in his repertoire, he was able to construct these inventions without much trouble at all. As long as it didn't require a source of energy, he could create anything. That was until now. After 5 years of constant failure, trial and error, spending blood, sweat, and tears, Michael finally created a working prototype of an engine. This particular type of machine needed a lot of perfect pieces, with even just a little bit of an imperfection turning the entire thing useless. The problem was that the materials needed to be strong enough to handle the pressure. However, that meant that it would be a lot harder for Michael to bend the materials to his desired specifications. But after 5 years of working on it constantly, it was finally done. Michael walked into his project room and assembled the parts into one machine, with the final piece fitting with a satisfying clink. Now, he just needed fuel, and he could finally harness electricity. Michael walked up to his parents' master bedroom to ask them where he could buy a gallon of petroleum oil. He needed a lot of them for his electricity project to succeed. Knock, knock. Excitedly, he opened the door without waiting for a response. And when he walked in, he noticed that Bart and Lilia were in the middle of discussing something serious. It seemed that this wasn't the right time to ask for a favor. "Sorry," Michael said. "I should have waited." Bart shook his head. "It's all right, son. Come on in. We were just about to call for you." Michael observed the serious look on their faces. "Is something wrong?" he asked. His mother motioned for him to sit on the bed with her, which he complied. Then, she started to rub his hair, just like she used to when he was smaller. "Dear Michael, you know that you are about to turn 10 years old, correct?" Michael was aware of his birthday, but he didn't think it was anything special. After all, he already convinced them to forego a lavish party a few birthdays ago. "Son, you don't know this, but 10 years old is an important milestone for a child. I am not exaggerating when I say that it will change your future," Bart said, crossing his arms. Michael frowned. "What are you talking about?" "At 10 years old, a child will have the opportunity to have what's called a talent awakening," his mother explained. "What's that?" Michael asked, completely clueless. Talent is inherent in every person. It is the thing that they most excel at, even if they know it or not. And with a talent awakening, they can find out that inherent aptitude they had all their life. Michael had ChatJK search the records in the Magic Library about a talent awakening, but there was not a single book that detailed what it was. "What will I get if I awaken a talent?" Michael asked. "Someone who awakens a talent will gain new spells that only they can learn. Those spells will have something to do with the talent they awakened. For example, someone I know gained the talent called Magma Technician. One of the spells they gained was called Magma Swim, giving them the ability to live in a volcano and remain unharmed." A glint of recognition flashed through Michael's eyes. Her explanation was very similar to what he heard 5 years ago. The unique spells that people learn because of their talent is called a skill. Michael's eyes widened. This was the exact explanation ChatJK gave him when describing the difference between a spell and a skill. He didn't know that people gained a skill through their talent. He even thought that it was something that ChatJK made up on its own. Meanwhile, Lilia saw Michael's stern face. Her heart ached, thinking that her son was worrying about the talent he was going to get. "Don't worry, my dear son. I'm sure that with your aptitude in magic, you'll get a talent related to your quadruple mastery course. I'll predict it now. You'll have a talent that will allow you to harness all 4 elements and combine them into one. I'm sure you'll get a supreme skill," Lilia declared. Michael's jaw dropped. "Honey, don't get the boys' hopes up. You do know that a supreme skill hasn't shown up in our country in more than 100 years, right?" Bart remained a realist. You don't believe in your son? With how smart he is, I'm sure he'll gain one." Lilia insisted. "Of course I believe in Michael. I just think it's best if we don't have any expectations for his talent awakening." Bart then approached his son and ruffled his head. "Michael, we love you no matter what talent you awaken. You know that, right?" But the 10-year-old Michael still couldn't believe it. Even though he hadn't undergone the talent awakening yet, he already had a skill of his own, a supreme skill at that. He didn't even know that was possible. A supreme skill? What's that? Michael asked awkwardly. A supreme skill is an extremely broken power that can rewrite reality itself. From what I know, there are only about 10 of them in the entire world, and each of their wielders are beings of immense strength and power. The current king of the seas controls the oceans because of his supreme skill. The monstrous demon king commands the respect of all monsters because of her supreme skill. The draconic empress reigned supreme over her entire race because of her supreme skill. Michael, do not be let down when you don't get a supreme skill. They are too powerful to be left in too many hands, so God only bestows them upon a very select few. Bart's explanation made Michael sober up. He would have never thought that the skill he obtained from ChatJK2's software update would turn out to be so special. He knew it was strong, but he didn't know it was rule the world strong. There's no use arguing about it here. We should head over to Kingsbridge right now and visit the church, Lilius said, already packing for the trip. Michael didn't know what would happen to him in his talent awakening. What do you think, ChatJK2? I do not have enough knowledge about the subject. However, I can assure you that if you receive a talent, acquiring another supreme skill is more than possible. ChatJK2, according to my parents, supreme skills aren't that easy to get. And I already have one of my own, thanks to you. I doubt I'll get lucky again, right? Michael journeyed with his parents to Kingsbridge after 5 years of staying inside the Vanderbilt estate this entire time. It was wintertime this season, so Michael had to cast a few ember spells along the way, just to keep the carriage warm enough to enjoy. Of course, he didn't forget their trusty horse whose entire body was warmed through Michael's fire spells, making the journey easy for the animal. They reached the walls of Kingsbridge and saw snow piled up on top of the walkways. Soldiers were rubbing their arms as they inspected the carriages entering the city. As usual, their carriage was quickly let in without much trouble. Michael peeked out of the windows and saw how business had been booming for the Reborn company. Anywhere he looked, he saw men and women buying or carrying matchboxes to keep themselves warm. They used it to create a warm fireplace. They used it to light a camp outside to play, and their children used it to act like mages casting fire spells. "Look, Mom, I'm a fire wizard," said an excited boy to his mother while lighting a match. Yes, you are," replied a happy mother. She was wearing a distinct type of eyeglasses that Reborn company sold for cheap that fixed nearsightedness. "I'll play Reborn chess so that I can be smart enough to join the Magic Tower," declared the little boy. Numerous families were happy this winter, and it was all because of the inventions of the Reborn company. That mother was able to get a good job as a clerk at a bank because she could finally read text on paper using Reborn eyeglasses. Because of that, she no longer had to worry about purchasing food this winter, and she even had spare money to buy her kid a chessboard. It also helped that they didn't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to hire a fire mage to keep their house warm. A single 20 copper matchstick was enough. Reborn made everyone's lives a lot more comfortable. And because of this small company had been marked in their hearts as their savior. Michael smiled, feeling satisfied that even if it was just a little bit, he was able to help these people become as comfortable as he was. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Achoo! He heard the sounds of sneezing and coughing all around the streets. More often than not, Michael saw men and women walking through the roads with sunken eyes and dry skin, as if they were on the brink of death. What's going on with them? Michael asked. "Honey, put your head back in the carriage. There's disease spreading through the city. We're only here for your talent awakening. Can't have you getting sick on your most important day," his mother warned. "Dad, why are they sick?" Bart pulled Michael inside the carriage before answering. "It happens quite often during the winter. Mages are doing all they can to cure it, but there's only a limited number of them who can perform healing." Just then, the familiar stink of the river dames entered the carriage and assaulted Michael's nose. He still hasn't gotten used to it. It's probably the river pollution that's spreading the disease. As long as they don't fix the problem, no wonder people still get sick. Michael had the idea of building a sewer system for the city, but found it to be too big to undergo when he was 5 years old. He started to reconsider the idea. The carriage finally reached the church, which was built like the cathedrals he had seen in his previous life. The buildings were domed, with towering spires at each top. And when they walked inside, Michael saw the pews lined up on each side, with religious figures and paintings filling the space between the pillars. The church was dead empty, with nothing but silence filling the space. He guessed that just like in his previous life, churches were only active during mass times. The candles flickered as Michael walked through the red carpet. "Ah, welcome, Vanderbilt family. A bald man wearing a white robe came from the door from the side of the altar. "Good morning, priest. We're here to have my son, Michael, awaken his talent," Bart said with respect. The priest nodded, aware of why they visited. "I have heard of the young boy's talents. You need not worry about him, I think. A genius like him will surely awaken a good skill." Lilia's face brightened once she heard that. "You hear that, Michael?" But Michael wasn't paying attention. He looked at the statue of a holy maiden in the middle of the church. "Is that the god?" he asked. The priest nodded. "Yes, she is the supreme goddess of this world, the one who created everything, and the one who decides all. This talent awakening will allow you to connect with her holiness for a brief moment, giving you a chance to awaken your true powers." "She's a woman? I didn't really notice when I talked to her when I reincarnated. Are you ready?" the priest asked. Bart and Lilia both guided Michael to the altar and positioned him just in front of the goddess statue. "You will feel yourself falling asleep. Do not fight it. That is part of the ritual," whispered his mother. With everything ready, the priest raised his hand and muttered something under his breath as he channeled the divine power in his body. Michael saw a light flash from the statue's head, slowly intensifying until all his senses were overwhelmed with blindness. "I can't see anything. Is something happening? Chat JK too? You died, PFTTT. Just kidding." Michael heard an unfamiliar voice answer his head. He slowly opened his eyes and saw himself in a completely different place. The ground he stood on wasn't marble or velvet carpet, but a very fluffy and surprisingly stable cloud. He looked around and saw what looked to be a perfect depiction of heaven. There were clouds everywhere, floating in the air and creating platforms like stairs and ledges. "How have you been liking your new life?" Michael looked to the front and saw a giant feminine face staring down at him. Her red lips could swallow an entire 5-story building. "Are you God?" he asked. "Why, yes, I am. It's only been 10 years, but you already forgot who I am?" "I'm sulking." Michael didn't remember God being this beautiful. The goddess pouted, expressing her disappointment in Michael. "Sorry, I didn't recognize you. I was just a floating soul back then," Michael apologized. "That's fine, I forgive you. After all, you've shown me incredibly entertaining things since you've reincarnated into this world." "You are mad? I'm practically cheating the advancement of this world's technology." The goddess laughed. "It's fine," she said. "My people have become so used to magic that they never have any advancement in technology at all. It is quite frustrating watching the same thing for thousands upon thousands of years." Michael had a feeling that this was the entire reason why he was reincarnated in the first place. "Anyway, I like what you're doing, so keep at it. I hope you achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, Mr. Stoic." The goddess flashed a vision of the world on the clouds. It showed the happy smiles of women washing their hands with Reborn soap. It showed the rowdy crowd of chess players enjoying their game in front of the fireplace. And it showed how much he affected the lives of the people in his life. His mother and father were embracing each other as they watched Michael's body standing still under the goddess statue. Back in the Vanderbilt estate, Beretta no longer arched her back as it ached from fetching pails of water from the well. There were so many more people whose lives had completely changed for the better, either directly or indirectly by Michael's actions. "I just want everyone to be as comfortable as me," Michael said to the goddess. "And that's what makes you so special. That's why I gave you that power in the first place." Michael rubbed his head. He didn't really think what he did was anything special. After all, everything was only possible because of his personal AI assistant. However, the goddess knew that if it was any other soul that came equipped with ChatJK2, then they wouldn't have used it the way Michael used it to make other people's lives better. "Anyway, what happens now? Do you just send me back to the real world?" The giant head shook her head. "No. Didn't they tell you that it's time for your talent awakening? I thought I already had my talent. I already have supreme skill." The goddess chuckled. "That doesn't excuse you from getting talent. I'll force it on you whether you like it or not." Michael shrugged. As usual, if he couldn't do anything about it, then it was useless to argue. To help you achieve your dream of making everyone comfortable, you'll have to continue to spread inventions throughout the world. However, it will not be easy. You'll have lots of competition, not to mention Some people are too entrenched in their culture and their belief that you will find it hard to influence them to accept your inventions. To make it easier, I will give you a talent that will allow you and your allies to achieve the top of their fields. I hereby bless you with the talent. Harbinger of the Future. Michael felt a warm sensation flow from his head down to his toes. He was covered in some kind of holy aura for a few seconds before it dissipated into his skin. And with that talent comes a supreme skill called Gift Bestowal. Just then, Michael saw the familiar system screen show up in his vision. Michael Von Vanderbilt. Magic Talent. SSS Plus Class. Element Mastery. Not applicable. Magic Purity. 99.99%. Mana Quantity. Not applicable. Talent. Harbinger of the Future. Realm. 4-star Learned Magician. Progress to next update. 0.89%. Supreme Skill. Unity Gathering. Supreme Skill. Gift Bestowal. Skills. Absolute Unity Defense. 4-star level. Learn spells. Water Ball. Ember. Rock Throw. He didn't think that God would give him another supreme skill. He heard that only 10 people in the entire world had a supreme skill. And now he had 2. Thanks, though I don't know what supreme skill does. And what about my talent? What does that mean? The goddess flashed a mysterious smile. Michael didn't know if she was playing with him or simply wanted to laugh at him. Your talent is what it is. You bring forth the future. As for your supreme skill, you can find the full extent of your powers by yourself. The only thing you need to know is that you can awaken the hidden talent in a being and endow them with powers that would have been otherwise impossible to obtain. I don't want to spoil the surprise for you, so look forward to it. Another overpowered ability, Michael would happily accept such a gift. He was glad that it was a power that helped him make other people achieve their full potential. Fufufu, I can't wait to see what you'll do with those powers. Michael suddenly felt his body get lighter and lighter. His hands started to become translucent, as if he was fading away from existence. I guess that's all the time we have for today. Michael looked at the goddess, gratitude filling his eyes. Thanks, he said honestly. It was only because of her that he was able to live such a good life. No probs, God replied. Oh, and by the way, I suggest that you get your family out of Kingsbridge as soon as possible. There's going to be a plague soon. Michael resisted the fading feeling in his body once he heard that. What do you mean? He asked in a rushed tone. You've noticed the pollution on River Dames, right? It's only going to get worse from here, and it will eventually lead to a lot of deaths in the city. I'm just warning you that you should get out of the city before you get infected. Michael frowned. His father worked in Kingsbridge. Cerberus and the mages he befriended while playing chess lived there. His Reborn company was just starting to mark its spot in the city. He couldn't let such a tragedy fall on Kingsbridge and the innocent people there. Not if he could help it. Fufufu. I guess you'll have to work on that sewer system you've been thinking about. Good luck. The goddess bid him a kiss goodbye before sending his soul back to the world. Michael woke up with resolve and determination lighting a fire in his eyes. As soon as the light faded, Michael found himself back at the church, staring at the statue of the goddess he just had a conversation with. A golden aura suddenly came down from the domed ceiling above and shot a ray down toward Michael's feet. The priest, upon seeing this, felt his hair stand up on end. His eyes widened, but even that couldn't express the surprise in his heart. Whenever a kid underwent their talent awakening, a ray of light would always come down towards the child and give an indication of what talent they awakened. He was used to seeing a dim red light, indicating a fighting talent, a blue light indicating a talent for magic, or a green ray to show a talent for production. However, he had never seen a golden ray of light before. He almost couldn't believe his eyes. Golden, that's the rumored supreme talent, the priest declared, his voice trailing off from surprise. Your son has a supreme skill. Lilia and Bart gasped. His mother expressed surprise, but she wasn't shocked. It was as if her greatest wish had been fulfilled. Bart, on the other hand, couldn't close his jaws after hearing the priest confirm the world-breaking talent awakening. I knew it. Lilia immediately grasped her son into a tight hug. My son is a genius. Do we know what kind of supreme skill it is? Bart asked the priest calmly, with his tapping feet betraying his true excitement. Everyone looked at Michael, who simply shrugged his shoulders and uttered the truth. My talent is called Harbinger of the Future, the supreme skill, gift bestowal. Everyone looked at the priest for some kind of explanation, but the man was none the wiser. After all, the world had only seen 10 people with supreme skills, and all of their wielders were extremely secretive about their true powers. And even then, Michael's supreme skill could be completely different from the other supreme skills. We don't know the true extent of that supreme skill. Only the goddess knows that. Michael will have to discover it by himself, the priest explained. It doesn't matter. It's a supreme skill. I'm sure that it would only propel my son into heights greater than the world. Lilia gushed. She couldn't help but smother Michael with love as she tried to rein in her excitement. All her bragging about her son's genius was vindicated at last. Son, if you need any help, any at all, you can come to us at any time, Bart said, ruffling his hair. But Bart noticed that Michael wasn't as excited as he should be after getting such an amazing talent. His son seemed troubled. What's wrong? He asked Michael. There's one thing that I need help with, Dad, Michael said to his parents. The goddess told me that a plague would come to Kingsbridge unless the problem with the river dames is fixed. Bart, Lilia, and the priest all looked at Michael with a strange expression. Son, you spoke to the goddess? Bart said, with a mix of worry and surprise. That's impossible, denied the priest. Us mortals are not worthy enough to speak to the goddess. All kids who undergo their talent awakening recall different things from their childhood. You must have been dreaming. It's true. I spoke to her, Michael said with a straight face. And just as the priest was about to lecture Michael about how bad it was to lie about such things, the candles placed on the walls were suddenly extinguished by a non-existent gust of wind, covering the entire place black. After a few seconds of pure darkness, flames re-emerged from the wicks, enlightening the church interior. The priest opened and closed his mouth, unable to bring any words out of his tongue. And before he could explain it as nothing but a coincidence, a loud crash came from a thunderous roar of lighting in the heavens. If that wasn't a sign from God, then what is? I guess things are different when a kid is given a supreme talent, I got to go. The priest immediately bid goodbye and imprisoned himself in his quarters. He wanted to spend the entire week praying to the goddess for forgiveness. If Michael was special enough to receive a supreme talent, then it should have been obvious that he was favored by the goddess. The priest forgot that and almost offended the kid. Back to Michael and his family, Bart questioned his son about this supposed plague. Are you sure about this, Michael? A plague? Michael nodded. Yes. Disease spreads because people are drinking water from the polluted river dames full of human waste. But the mages make sure that the river water is clean. They always filter the water for any waste. They probably don't know about microscopic diseases, Michael, though. Even if the entire river is boiled, it won't be sanitized to drink. It's not enough, he said. We need to build a sewer system. Bart's eyebrows lifted, curious as to what his son was cooking up this time. Is that the same thing as the one you installed in our home? Yes, he replied. Here's my plan. Michael raised his hand and cast a simple 2-star spell called Rock Bend. Stone particles emerged from the earth mana stored in Michael's cores and floated on top of his hand. Slowly, these rock particles molded themselves into a miniature figure of the river dames, the bridge that crossed it, and even the buildings surrounding the river. Michael's proficiency in his magic spells reached enough mastery to allow him to command the stones to recreate Kingsbridge City with accurate representation. With a simple 1-star water ball spell, he showed how the sewer system would work in the river dames and how everything connected throughout the city. Bart's eyes showed surprise and astonishment at the ingenuity of his son's plan. If this worked as Michael planned it to be, then it would negate the need for mages to cleanse the river every week. There could even be a time when people could swim in the river. This is brilliant, Bart uttered in complete amazement. Oh, my dear Michael is so talented yet so kind-hearted. You're the perfect boy. Lilia hugged him again. Where else would anyone find a boy with a supreme skill, a genius mind, and a kind heart but her son? Do you think we could do it? Michael asked. Bart rubbed his chin, with his mind working on the project's feasibility. There are a lot of hurdles with this, son. First of all, the issue of money. A large-scale construction like this would need a tremendous amount of funding. After all, the sewer system will span the entire city, which will take a lot of manpower as well. Most importantly, we will need the help of the magic tower to lend us some mages adept with construction. Michael raised his hand. We don't have to worry about that. I will talk to the tower master and convince him to help us. A little wager with a game of chess should suffice, he thought. All right, Bart nodded. The most important part we have to consider is the city support. Even if we have the money and manpower to create the sewer system, it would be useless if we don't get permission from the rulers of Kingsbridge City. Michael looked up at his father. Don't we have enough influence for that? We are Vanderbilts, after all. Bart sighed. Yes, we indeed have enough influence with the high authorities of the city. However, that is just one part of the problem. We also have to worry about public perception, and that, I'm afraid, can't be solved by flashing our family emblem. Michael frowned. He would have thought that the richest family in the world would have the support of the city. Why not, he asked. It's my fault, son. I have not been able to retain my control over the public perception of the Vanderbilt business. Right now, the entire city is on the side of the new upstart company called Reborn. Unless we have their help in convincing the citizens to start a large-scale construction that will disturb their daily lives, we can't start the sewer system, Bart explained. Michael couldn't help but chuckle to himself. If the Reborn company was the final piece of the puzzle they needed to start the sewer project, then it was easier than he thought. I think I can help with that. Michael led his parents back to their carriage and instructed Sebastian to go toward a certain building in the city. After a few minutes of riding in the carriage, they finally reached a newly built building in the middle of the commerce district of the entire city. There was a large, sculpted typography of the company named Reborn on the side of the building. Michael didn't know how much he spent to have this building constructed, but it must have cost more than 500,000 gold coins, which was why all of the profit he earned from the company was spent towards the company itself. He walked out of the carriage, with his parents just behind him. Michael, this is the main office of the Reborn office. We can't just stroll in here without a proper meeting scheduled, Bart said, tugging on Michael's scruff to stop him in his tracks. The Reborn company was at its highest popularity as of this moment, with their innovative product called the Reborn Matchstick becoming the highest-selling product this winter. Even now, in the deep dead winter, people were still lining up in their office doors to buy their products. Though most people didn't like to bathe during the winter, most people found that they had less chance of contracting a disease whenever they bathed with Reborn soap and shampoo. Right now, it was just a rumor and hearsay, but they didn't know that it was rooted in science. Because of their popularity, people couldn't simply walk down their doors and demand an audience with their owner, especially since no one had seen them since the company started. It's even become a source of gossip and intrigue within the city. Even as a Vanderbilt, Bart was sure that he couldn't use his influence to try and meet with the Reborn boss. It's fine, Dad. Michael tried to walk through the doors again, but Bart had a firm grip on his shoulders. Bursting in through their doors is not a good first impression, Bart said. It's better if we explain the situation to them through a letter and request a meeting. I've heard that the owner of Reborn is a magnanimous figure who doesn't prioritize monetary gain. I'm sure he'll want to help with the sewer system since it will benefit the entire city. Even Lilia tried to stop Michael from barging in. Michael dear, it's cold outside. We should get back in the carriage, she said, shivering with snow piling up on her winter hat. Don't worry, Mom, Dad. I'll show you. Michael finally walked forward and opened the doors, revealing the busy clerks and assistants working at their desks. They all stopped what they were doing and looked at the 10-year-old boy who entered their offices. Before they could say anything, the door to the boss's room suddenly burst wide open, with Castell coming out of the room and staring at Michael. Young master, she said, as her eyes moved past him and spotted Lilia and Bart behind him. Immediately, she knew that the time to reveal the truth was here. She immediately walked down the steps of her office and greeted Michael and his family with a bow. Welcome, young master. I hope the office is to your liking, Castell said, ignoring the stares of the Vanderbilts. It's good. You did fine, Castell, Michael said casually, inspecting the interior of the office. Why have you visited the building, young master? Have you come to take back control of your company? And the moment she said that, Bart and Lilia both walked inside and expressed their confusion. Castell? What's going on here? Bart tapped one of the workers to the side and asked, How do you know her? He asked, pointing at Castell. That's Miss Castell, sir, the manager of the Reborn company. Bart looked over to Castell, with confusion painted all over his face. He looked like he knew the answer to the question in his head, but couldn't quite reconcile that with reality. Good afternoon, madam, sir, Castell said respectfully. That is right. I'm the current manager of the Reborn company. However, the true owner of this business is none other than the young master. He is the true hand that led this company to the heights it is today. Bart and Lilia stare at Castell, then at Michael, with their expressions full of disbelief. But as usual, whenever their kid did something incredible, he would always explain it with nothing but a casual shrug of the shoulders. It's a little something I started when I was 5 years old. Turns out, the soap and shampoo I created is very popular with a lot of people, Michael explained. But even that wasn't enough to satisfy his parents' curiosity. Michael, oh, you created the Reborn soap and shampoo? Lilia said, with her expression hidden by her long, golden hair. Her seemingly gloomy expression made Michael feel guilty. Sorry, Mom. I should have told you earlier. And before he could explain any further, Lilia suddenly jumped up and spread her arms in the air while twirling on her toes. This must have been the happiest she'd ever been, much more than when she found out Michael had a supreme skill. My dear son owns Reborn. Haha, I'm the luckiest mother there ever is. That means you'll be able to give me all kinds of soap and shampoo. Right, dear? Maybe you'll even give me samples of products not yet sold to the public, right? Lilia asked, her eyes sparkling. It was no secret that Lilia was one of the women enchanted with the scent that Reborn's cleaning products left on her body. Even now, her skin smelled of flowers and honey. Women would always brag to her about owning a crate of Reborn soap and shampoo all to themselves. It's not expensive jewelry or well-knit dresses that were the subject of tea-time gossip. It was Reborn soap and shampoo. Well, now Lilia can brag to them that it was her son who created all that. Her pride over her son was over the moon. Michael couldn't help but chuckle. Here he thought he'd get lectured. Turns out, his mother just wanted some sample products. You can have anything you want, mother, he replied. Castell, you have that lotion I created, right? Castell nodded and turned to Lilia. If you'd like, madam, I can lead you there. Lilia didn't hesitate any longer and followed Castell toward the production room of the building. On the way, Lilia talked to Castell about how impressive her son was in creating such a successful company. Meanwhile, the Vanderbilt father and son were left all to themselves. To be more exact, they were the owner of the Vanderbilt business, the previous leading company in the city, and the creator of Reborn, the up-and-coming company that stole away the public approval from the Vanderbilt business. Bart rubbed his forehead, shaking his head in disbelief. All this time, you were the owner of Reborn? The company that outsold the entire Vanderbilt business in Kingsbridge by 2 times for the last 5 years was owned by his son. Everyone thought Reborn was created by a secretive mogul from overseas who had the backing of entire kingdoms or countries under its banner. After all, how else could it have created such innovative products? They must have had huge funding from the beginning to create the perfect product. No one would have thought it was created by a 10-year-old boy, especially not his father. Michael held his head down. I'm sorry, Dad. I know that Reborn has been causing trouble with the Vanderbilt business. Before he could even say anything, Bart kneeled and embraced his son. Tears flowed down his face. I'm proud, son. Incredibly so. I've seen the Reborn company grow from a fledgling business selling nothing but soap and shampoo into a proper company that took over the entire city. Even though they were my competitor, I was incredibly impressed with the innovative ideas and products that they've been putting out. And the most important part is that they have been improving the lives of everyone in the city, whether they be rich or poor. I admired them and longed to meet the owner of Reborn to tell him how much I appreciate how much he has done for this city. And it turns out it's my son. You created Reborn. Bart chuckled as he wiped the tears out his eyes. Haha, I should have known. Your inventions like the faucet and plumbing system, the hot springs, the bicycle, everything makes sense now. Only you could have been the owner of Reborn. Michael smiled, his eyes glassy and moist. Thanks, Dad. Though, those kind words won't be enough for me to slow down my expansion. I'll knock the Vanderbilt business out of this city, Michael said jokingly. Bart had a hearty laugh before ruffling Michael's head and playfully knocking on his forehead. In the aftermath of Michael telling the truth to his parents, they all went inside Castell's office to talk about more stuff. Michael spent a good hour talking to his mother and father about how everything in the Reborn company came about, and how he sold his first crate of soap and shampoo. They expressed their amazement, not at just his amazing products, but his business acumen. No ordinary 5-year-old would think that branding would be important in a company. For example, naming chess as Reborn Chess allowed the company to become famous among the mages and wizards in the entire country. Even if they don't know the company, they would know the name. Bart realized the talent his son had for business. It was even a little bit frightening. Whenever Michael explained why he made specific business decisions, Bart would be reminded of how his own father spoke about the Vanderbilt business. Bart was sure that if Michael met his grandfather, they would find themselves in common company. The man who built the Vanderbilt business from the ground up to the top of the world would surely appreciate Michael's talents. The more Michael showed off his genius and talents, the more Bart was sure that he would make a good impression on his grandfather. He couldn't wait to introduce Michael to him when they visit the family estate. After an hour of Michael's parents gushing over his accomplishments in the business world, Michael brought the topic of the conversation back to the sewer system. Castell, the reason that we visited you is because I want to use the company's influence on a big project. Big project, sir? Michael cast the same recreation of the river dames with the sewer system in place. This allowed Castell to grasp the idea fairly quickly. We have to do this, or else there will be a plague in the city, Michael warned. Castell gasped, covering her mouth in shock. The mention of a plague brought back unpleasant memories in Castell. She barely survived that situation. She just didn't want another girl to end up with her parents gone like her. Her sharp eyes conveyed her determination to prevent this plague, no matter the cost. Young master, what can we do? She asked. Bart explained that they only needed the approval of all the citizens in Kingsbridge to start the construction of a sewer system. This was a particularly hard problem, since creating an all-encompassing sewer system that connected all homes and buildings to the river dames would obstruct the daily lives of citizens. There'd only be a couple of people who would allow someone to tear down their entire building floor to create a strange sewer system they didn't understand. This was a hard task to accomplish, even with the combined resources of the Vanderbilt business and the Reborn company. Sorry for putting this on you, Castell. You have been burdened with a lot of responsibilities ever since I made you manage the company. Castell shook her head. No, it's fine, young master. Truth is, I'm not as hard-working as Beretta, nor am I as good at cleaning as the other maids. But ever since you gave me responsibility for your company, I feel alive. My heart is beating. I thought I wanted to be a maid all my life, but I realized that this is what I wanted this whole time. I want to manage a company. I want to make decisions that would lead to its growth. I want to see the smiles on everyone's faces as they use our products. And now, you gave me a chance to help prevent a plague, the one that took my parents. You made me feel like I'm living the dream with all of this. So please don't say that. I love working for you, she confessed. Please let me continue to help you to save the people of Kingsbridge from plague. In her desperation, Castell grabbed Michael's hands and pleaded. Michael was going to assure her that he was going to do everything he could, but just as his and Castell's hands touched, he suddenly felt a jolt of electricity course through his entire body. Supreme skill, gift bestowal activated. Castell, potential talent, SS class business mogul. Potential skill, golden nose. The user will gain a sixth sense, allowing them to have an intuition on business decisions that will lead to the best monetary outcome possible. Advancement of this skill will further allow the user to have a more accurate intuition, giving them the ability to choose between different outcomes. You have discovered Castell's hidden talent. Would you like to awaken it? Michael's eyes widened as he saw ChatJK2's message on the screen. Because the goddess told him nothing about his supreme skill, Michael had no idea how it could be used. So he was entirely caught off guard when he realized it could be activated with a simple touch. I can awaken her talent? Does it need some sort of sacrifice? No. You can awaken anyone's talent at any time you discover them. So, I can awaken her talent right now, just like how the priest awakened my talent. That is correct, Michael. It was also incredibly lucky that Castell's talent turned out to be an SS class talent, which was considered to be very rare. Meanwhile, Michael's silence finally caught everyone's attention. Michael, honey, are you okay? Lilia asked, coming over to his side. After coming to terms with the situation, Michael shook off his surprise and looked at Castell to ask her a very important question. Castell, do you trust me? The maid didn't hesitate to nod her head. Of course, young master. Do you want to become the official CEO of the Reborn company? He asked. Both Castell and Bart were unfamiliar with Michael's terminology. What's a CEO, young master? A CEO is the one who takes complete charge of a company, making all the decisions needed to further progress the company in the right direction. You will officially handle everything there is about Reborn, Michael explained. Castell seemed to have understood the general idea about the position, but like Bart, she didn't think that she was right for the job. She thought her job as a manager for Michael's company was only temporary. Once it got a little bit bigger, she thought he'd replace her with someone more capable. I don't think I can do that, young master. I'm not worthy, Castell said, waving her hands in denial. But Michael knew better. You've been managing the company pretty well without me. You're more than capable. And if you think that you can't handle more, then I can help you with that. I can awaken your talent. His words sent a shock to them all. Michael, what are you talking about? He smiled as he raised his hand towards Castell. ChatJK2, awaken her talent, please. Understood. A golden aura, different from all the mana elements in his cores, gathered around his arm. Lilia and Bart immediately recognized that golden light from Michael's talent awakening, evoking a surprised gasp from them both. Mom, Dad, I figured out what my supreme skill does, Michael said as he focused all the golden aura in his hands toward Castell. I can awaken anyone's talents. The golden light flashed towards Castell's entire body, enveloping her with a golden light that blinded her for a second. Awakening Castell's talent. Downloading the entire syllabus course on business management from the top universities directly to Castell's mind. Awakening complete. Castell felt information wash over her brain, filling it with ideas, formulas, and knowledge that related to business management. It embedded deep into the crevices of her mind, allowing her to become adept at her new job instantly. It was uncomfortable at first, especially since she was enlightened with knowledge from Michael's foreign world. But as the golden light faded, Castell felt a warm sensation flow through her body, allowing her some reprieve after the overload in her mind. It was even more relaxing than the hot springs back in the Vanderbilt mansion. Then, the knowledge consolidated. Her mind felt as refreshed as ever, with the added bonus of mastery over business management. She opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was the young master looking at her with a smile. How is it? He asked her. Castell looked at her hands, and somehow felt some kind of power coursing through her veins. It's magnificent. I can see things a lot clearer now, young master. You've given me a gift. Lilia and Bart waited curiously for Castell's explanation for what happened to her. After all, they didn't even think that it was possible to awaken someone's talent when they were already past the age of 10. But somehow, Michael's supreme skill allowed him to bypass that restriction. Castell, can you tell us what you feel? Bart asked. Castell looked at her hands and waved at the air as if she was seeing something in her vision. There's a screen in front of my eyes, she said. It has my name, my talent, my skill, and my current realm. Michael's eyes widened, not expecting that Castell would also be endowed with a system of her own. Would you like to inspect Castell's system? ChatJK2 asked him. As soon as Michael said yes, he saw another window screen pop up in his vision, showcasing Castell's current powers. Castell, Magic B class, Element Mastery, Unity Element. Magic purity, 87%. Mana quantity, not applicable. Talent, SS class business mogul. Realm, 1-star CEO. Skills, golden nose. The user will have good intuition over business decisions. Lesser unity gathering. The user will have an automatic gathering of all elemental mana. Lesser unity defense. The user will have a limited defense against all elemental magic and spells. His eyes widened once he saw her system. He didn't expect that she would also gain mastery over all elements, or unity, as well as the impenetrable unity defense. Chat JK2, is this her natural talent? Or did she learn this from me? All the individuals you awaken will inherit an inferior version of your skills. Would you like to turn off this automatic skill inheritance? No, leave it on for now, he replied. You have obtained the superior golden nose skill. What? How did I get that? This is due to your supreme skill, mana gathering. It allowed me to observe Castell's skill and copy it just like any other magic spell. However, the original golden nose does not add much benefit to you. Therefore, I adjusted the skill into a better version. Michael saw a window pop up in his vision, allowing him to see the description of his new skill. Superior golden nose. The user will have an intuitive sense of situations and decisions that will lead him to find talented individuals. Unlike Castell's version of the golden nose skill, Michael would find talented people instead of monetary gain. Michael was amazed at his supreme skill. With this power, he could find seemingly normal people and turn them into geniuses and talented individuals in their own right. Most people would have thought that once they were past the age of 10, they would no longer have a chance to ascend to greater heights. But with his supreme skill, he could find hidden gems and diamonds in the roughs within the crowd. Castell and Michael both explained to their parents about what she gained during this awakening. Once they found out how amazing she turned out to be, Bart and Lilia couldn't hide their surprise and almost jumped out of their seats. Is this real? Bart exclaimed, rubbing his head as he tried to wrap his mind around what he had just witnessed. My son, my dear son. He's too much of a genius. Lilia chuckled to herself. Not only could Michael awaken the talent of a person even though they were past the age of awakening, but he could also endow them with skills and masteries that would have made them famous in the entire country. They didn't even know how to process this information. After all, someone like Castell never showed any sign of magic proficiency in her life. But now, Lilia was somehow seeing signs of mana elements slowly gathering around Castell, just like Michael was when he was meditating. They couldn't believe it. That wasn't supposed to be possible. I've heard how powerful a supreme skill is supposed to be, but I didn't expect it to be this absurd, Bart exclaimed. Meanwhile, Castell walked over to Michael and tugged on his shirt. Young master, the knowledge you bestowed upon me has given me an idea of how we can proceed with the sewer system. Castell's new business acumen and knowledge worked instantly. It didn't even take her a second to think about the solution to their problem with the sewer system. It was as natural to her as breathing. She then went on to create an impromptu presentation meeting inside her office detailing all that they needed to accomplish for the project. Her hands wrote on paper as she explained to everyone, not even giving Bart any time to breathe out a response. He was forced to listen to her words and try to keep up with what she was saying. And the more she went on, the more Bart was impressed. Castell told them in great detail about how much time they would need to start the construction, how much manpower they needed, where they could get them, and even the hour-by-hour time frame for the workers to make sure that they wouldn't disturb the citizens for too long during construction. Her grasp on time management, communication, leadership, and even delegation was incredibly sharp. Her ideas were innovative and, if implemented in this current world, could increase efficiency by at least 3 times. Is this the business management knowledge you gained from Michael's supreme skill? Bart asked. Castell nodded. Everything about the sewer system made sense in her head. She had a full grasp on it. Young master, I have a solution to get the public approval for this project, Castell said with confidence. Ow! Michael asked. If you would like, young master, we can start to sell the plumbing system you installed in the Vanderbilt mansion. If they see how easy it is to get running water on their houses, They would be more than happy to let us start construction on their houses. We'll install plumbing pipes and the sewer system at the same time. This would accomplish two things. First, we can start the sewer system properly. And second, the Reborn company could also earn a lot of money from selling faucets and shower heads. Michael and his parents were incredibly impressed with Castell's expertise. They were more confident than ever that the Reborn company was in good hands. "That is an amazing idea," Michael complimented her. "As expected of my new CEO, there was just one thing they needed before they could start the sewer project. Young master, we still need the help of the magic tower. If we want the construction to go as smoothly as possible, we need the help of earth mages, a lot of them," Castell said. She had cause for concern with this because the magic tower earned a lot of money from getting commissioned by the city to cleanse the river. If the sewer system finished construction, then they would lose all that money going forward. But Michael waved off her concern. "I can deal with that," he said. Michael, Castell, and his parents all went their separate ways as they prepared for the construction of the sewer system. Castell remained in the Reborn office, starting to organize her plans for the project. She had to find the right workers, the right managers, and even the right materials for the plan to go smoothly. Bart went to the Vanderbilt office to use their family name as an influential force to make the governmental bodies in Kingsbridge City sign off on the project. Lilia also went off on her own, visiting her rich madam friends to spread the news about Reborn's new project that would help the entire city. With her influence, word would quickly disseminate throughout the city without having to use a lot of resources. After all, gossip was free. Meanwhile, Michael visited the Magic Tower again after 5 years. He went directly over to the top floor where the Tower Master resided. "Oh, Michael, it is good to see you," Cerberus said, greeting Michael with respect by tipping his pointy hat. "Hello, Cerberus. It's been a while," Michael said, looking at the room. Even after 5 years, the room still looked the same as before. The only thing different was the chessboards scattered around the room, with some pieces floating in the air. "I've heard you've gone through your talent awakening. May I ask what you obtained?" Cerberus asked, sipping a glass of water casually. "I got a supreme skill." The Tower Master spat out his drink, drenching himself in water. His eyes stared at Michael, trying to see if he was kidding. "You're not joking," he realized. "I got lucky, I guess," Michael said as shrugged nonchalantly. But the Tower Master knew that luck did not have a part in this. Every person in history who received a supreme skill ended up ruling or changing the world in a major way. The treaty of no ocean pollution between the whole world was made because the King of the Seas threatened to drown the whole world. People stopped enslaving monsters because the Demon Queen raised an entire continent off a map. They could finally traverse large distances because the Draconic Empress united the dragons, allowing them to offer their services to the world. It was mind-boggling to think that Michael could someday become synonymous with those figures. It was so surprising for Cerberus that he ended up drinking all the water in his cup, even though he had just spat out a load of water. "I need your help, Tower Master. I want to prevent a plague," Michael said. Cerberus almost spat his water again, but this time he held it in and drank the water in his mouth. "Plague? What are you talking about?" Michael went on to explain the human waste pollution in River Dames and how it could spread disease throughout the city. That is troubling to hear," Cerberus said, stroking his long, white beard. "So, I'm planning on creating a citywide sewer system that would fix this problem. But I need your help. I need the help of the Magic Tower." Cerberus went silent for a few seconds as he paced back and forth. "And why should we do this?" he asked Michael. "We'll lose 1,000,000 gold per year if this sewer system gets constructed." Michael's response was simple. "We'll play a game of chess for it," he said. "Deal." Michael chuckled. He knew that the old man wasn't as heartless as he wanted to look. Cerberus just didn't want to say yes immediately, because he was waiting for Michael to suggest they play Reborn chess with a wager. Of course, Cerberus valued human life more than anything. Not only that, the mages of the Magic Tower actually hated cleaning the River Dames, treating it as a chore every time. Michael will be doing them a favor, and they didn't need money. The only reason why they continued to cleanse the water was because they didn't want the people to suffer from disease. They knew that it was a temporary solution. But now that Michael came up with the sewer system, they could finally solve the problem once and for all. "Let's play," Cerberus said, telekinetically fixing the pieces into their places. Michael and Cerberus went head-to-head in Reborn chess. But because it's been 5 years, Cerberus' skills increased immensely. He was even starting to make Michael sweat while he cornered his pieces. "I think I can finally win this game." Cerberus' excitement bubbled. "You have no way to win." But in response to the threat, Michael smiled. There was still one move he could make. He placed the pawn piece diagonally with a move called impassant. This allowed Michael to completely change the situation, threatening to defeat Cerberus in the next move. "What? That's an illegal move. You can't do this." Michael shrugged. "It's in the rule books." Cerberus's eyes suddenly lit up in a white light as he searched through his mind. After a few seconds, he determined that Michael's move was indeed a legal move according to the official rulebooks of Reborn chess. However, it was such a rare move that no one in this world thought it was even possible. "How did you know this?" "I've never seen anyone use it before," Cerberus asked before gulping another glass of water. "I wrote it. I'm the owner of the Reborn company." Cerberus sprayed out a mist of water in the air, almost choking out of complete shock. It took about half an hour of Michael explaining the creation of the Reborn company for Cerberus to finally calm down. "You know, for an 8-star wizard with the title of Tranquil Blazing King of Fire, you're surprisingly adept at water," Michael joked. Cerberus sat in his chair, fanning himself to calm down. "It's your fault," Cerberus said. "Who would have thought that you're the one who created Reborn chess? I thought it was someone older and wiser than me." Everyone in the Magic Tower thought that the owner of Reborn was a hermit who recused himself from the world. Now, that image was broken, replaced by Michael's sly smile. "What kind of monstrous genius are you? Magic, business, supreme skill. You have everything, don't you? What a cheat." Cerberus could only curse his own talent. Even though he was once considered the most talented fire mage in the world, even he felt like a fraud in front of Michael. He was the true genius. "Let's get back to business. Now that I beat you, can I count on you to help us with the sewer system?" Michael asked, expectant of Cerberus' answer. The old man nodded his head exasperatedly. He was still a little bit salty after his loss against Michael. He never thought he was fighting against the very creator of Reborn chess. Of course, he was going to lose. "Good." Michael pumped his fist. "I'll tell Castell that we can start the project as soon as possible." But before he could leave, Cerberus raised his hand and stopped Michael in his tracks. "Wait a minute," he said. "There's still a little bit of a problem with the River Dames." Cerberus waved his hand, and a parchment paper with a drawn sketch of some kind of monster appeared in his hands. "We've been having reports that people are seeing a slimy beast in the river. We've dispatched some mages to take care of it, but we've yet to completely destroy the monster. It's best if you let us take care of it for a few more days before you start the construction." The Tower Master handed Michael the parchment paper, showing him the supposed monstrous beast that was hiding in the depths of the River Dames. It showed the silhouette of a creature that seemed to be composed of sludge made out of garbage and waste. It didn't have legs and only had arms, which were up in the air as if it was deliberately trying to scare someone. And as soon as Michael saw this image, ChatJK too suddenly said something in his mind. Skill, Superior Golden Nose activated. The silhouette of the creature started glowing gold out of nowhere. And judging from Cerberus' indifference, it seemed that Michael was the only one who could see this strange light. "There is a high likelihood that the creature in the River Dames has a high talent aptitude," said ChatJK too. Michael would have never expected his new skill to show its use so soon. Not only that, he didn't even think that monstrous beings could be awakened using his supreme talent. "Are you saying I can awaken the talent of this creature?" Michael asked. "Yes, all living beings have the potential to have their talent awakened." Having this option opened up so many possibilities for Michael. It immediately made him want to greet this creature and see what kind of talent a monster could awaken. And because of his supreme skill, he could also obtain that creature's skill for himself, just like the Superior Golden Nose. "Tower Master, can I be the one to take care of that situation?" he asked Cerberus. The old man looked at Michael, and with his eyes, he could see the overflowing amount of mana particles being absorbed by the kid every second. He didn't have to worry about the kid. It might be dangerous, Cerberus warned. I know you can take care of yourself, but you don't have to take this risk. Michael waved off his concern. It's fine. I also have to survey the bridge so that I can adjust the plans for the sewer system. Cerberus thought for a moment, and without warning, fired off a single fireball in Michael's direction. It was a 4-star spell, with enough destructive power to burst through brick walls. But as it reached the 10-year-old Michael, an invisible prismatic bubble appeared around his body. The fireball made contact with the shield, with the energetic fire mana trying to eat through the shield. But before it could even do some damage, water mana emerged from the shield and extinguished the fire, turning it into nothing but steam in the air. Cebu sighed. Just 10 years old, and Michael was already better than adult wizards. It was truly absurd. Fine, you can go, but always exercise caution. Michael nodded. Thanks for your help, Tower Master. I appreciate it. I'll try to visit the Tower Magic often to beat you at Reborn chess again. Cerberus shooed Michael away. As long as you don't make me have a heart attack again, then you're welcome here anytime. Cerberus took a sip of water, calming himself down now that the troublesome Michael would finally leave his room. But before Michael left, he had one last thing to say. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. I'm not just a quadruple talent mage. I can use all elements, not just 4. I think it's called Unity or whatever. But, Michael, today was the day that a rumored water sprout suddenly emerged from the top of the magic tower, drenching the innocent people walking below. It was followed by intense coughing, and what seemed to be an angry man cursing at the heavens for the unfairness. A couple of days before Michael arrived in Kingsbridge City to have his talent awakening. Under the bridge, crossing the River Dames, there were a couple of kids playing around and scavenging waste from the water. Some of them even swam in the shallow parts of the river. They cared not for the potential dangers or diseases that they could contract by swimming or even drinking the infected water of River Dames. They didn't know better. "Huh, I dare you to swim across," said one boy. "If you can swim to the bottom, then I'll swim across," answered another boy. And as these rowdy boys played around, they didn't notice the presence of a creature peeking its head out of the water. "Humans play. Fun, me too," it muttered, but the children could hear nothing but a gurgle of unintelligible sounds. "What's that sound?" one of them asked, whipping his head around the river. "Don't tell me you're afraid of that fake story. I heard that it's true. My neighbor said that he saw the monster at night." Bah, what a load of bollocks. But even if their parents warned them about going off on their own in the River Dames, they still went anyway. They didn't have any sense of self-preservation. If they had, they wouldn't even be near the River Dames in the first place. "Play me too?" The creature slowly walked towards the children, its intent being nothing but pure. It just wanted to experience joy the way they were feeling right now. Of course, the creature knew that it was different from them. No matter how much it wanted to interact with them, it could only watch them from afar, never being able to approach them because of its appearance. But then, one of the kids scraped his knee playing too hard in the river. Ow! The creature saw microscopic bacteria and viruses floating around the river, slowly making their way toward the injured child who was none the wiser. Human danger, ill. It knew instinctively that the child was in danger. Even with an open injury, the kid was still frolicking in the river, letting dirty water contaminate the wound. It had to do something. Its body started to glow a green light. Its innate magic allowed it to consume all the waste in the water, which helped sustain the creature, as well as purify the dirty water around the children. "Kids, watch out." However, one concerned citizen saw the green, glowing creature in the water slowly making its way towards the children. As soon as the kids turned to see where the man was pointing, they were horrified to see the horrific appearance of the monster in the river. Panic spread through the children. They rushed away from the River Dames as fast as possible, trudging through the wastewater, causing them to slip. "Save me! Save me! Kya! Monster! A monster's trying to eat me!" All the commotion from the children garnered the attention of all the people crossing the bridge. They looked down at the river and saw the dangerous creature slowly making its way towards the innocent children. Someone save them. Get the kids out. Back off, you monster. One of the men took out a knife from his pocket and threw it at the monster, grazing its head. Seeing this, the rest of the people started to throw things off the bridge to try and ward off the monster that was trying to eat the kids. But even when the creature's head was being bashed by rocks and pitchforks, it kept moving towards the children. After all, the injured kid was still in the water. Viruses and bacteria would contaminate the boy's wound and kill him in the process if the creature left now. The child would get overwhelmed by disease. Finally, the boy found solid footing and was able to leave the current of the river. But then he noticed something. He looked down at the scrape in his knee and found it to have magically healed. It was almost gone, with just a little bit of redness in the area. The kid looked back at the river and saw the creature staring at him. Then, the creature descended into the depths of the river, as if it was only waiting for him to be safe. A few hours later, after the situation calmed down, no matter how much the boy protested, a witch hunt for the creature began. They thought it was dangerous. They thought it was the reason why people were getting sick from the water. They tried to exterminate the monster. Back to the present, Michael observed the river dames and watched the waste float to the surface. It was disgusting, to say the least. Chat JK2, can you create a spell that will block that horrid smell? Understood. Synthesizing magic spell. Complete. Scent cleanser. Air element. This magic allows the user to repel unwanted scents away from their location. That's better, Michael said as he took a big sniff, smelling nothing but fresh air. Now, I just need to find that creature. With his supreme skill, mana gathering, Michael could see and sense any mana in his surroundings. If there was a creature in this river, then he would sense the mana in its body. His eyes scanned the river until he saw a clump of poison mana in the river. Strangely enough, it wasn't hiding at the bottom. It was away from the river, towards the buildings on its side. It looks like the creature found a lair for itself. Without hesitating any longer, Michael jumped feet first into the river. Before the dirty, contaminated water could splash toward his body, an invisible prismatic bubble appeared around Michael and protected him from being wet. He submerged underwater with a 1-meter sphere of protection around him. Once inside the river, Michael could see nothing but darkness around him. He had to cast a simple 1-star spell called Flashlight to illuminate the water using the ball of light at the tip of his finger. He scanned his surroundings, ignoring all the garbage and waste in the water, until he finally found a hole by the side of the river. Thankfully, it was just big enough for him to squeeze through. Michael entered the small burrow hole, following the tunnel until he found himself in a large dark cavern. He emerged from the water and entered the creature's lair. Just then, somewhere inside the underground chamber, the creature awoke from its slumber and felt a disturbance. Unlike its original appearance, the creature was full of cuts and scabs. Plenty of humans have already tried and failed to kill the creature. It thought Michael was another one of them. But this time, the creature wasn't going to run away. No more. It was going to fight back.